team, ability to score runs, getting back to the things that we are traditionally good at, defense, base running, the core. I think, our everyday club feels like it could be a very strong October team.
That was John Mozeliak at the beginning of spring training. Unfortunately, he did mention a couple of names there that are not going to be on the opening day roster, but it is opening day.
How the season changed.
Woo, baby, we made it. Yeah, let's go Cards!
Blues playoffs, woo!
Vibe check. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a vibe check. We made it to opening day, which is supposed to be celebratory. I feel like it's less celebratory this year than it's been in years past.
What are you talking about? You heard Mo.
Maybe I'm misreading that. Alex, I cannot remember a time. I've been around this club for a decade now. I worked in Columbia covering the Cardinals for the affiliate out there, and then I worked here starting in 2015. And ever since, I feel like every year there's been at least a decent portion of this fan base that goes into the season feeling pretty darn optimistic about your club. I am hard-pressed right now to find a large swath of our audience. And 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. Would love to hear from you today if you are in this category. The YouTube chat, the graveyard's over there, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Alex, I can't find the people that are overly optimistic about this Cardinals team. I feel like I'm more optimistic about this team than most, and I think they're winning like 86 games this year, and that's on the optimistic route. How are you feeling about the club going into opening day? Let's get a vibe check from the two of you.
Yeah, it's definitely a new experience for me and feeling this way for the opening of a season because, in my head, when you do the pre and post like I've done in the past, you put together what that pregame looks like, and it's all of the hype. It's all of the excitement around certain areas. And, man, it's tough to find one other than, you've got the offense that you're excited about, but you could go down the list and pick apart and say, well, it didn't work out in the past. I told you guys in the office, and this is truly how I feel, I go into this season, and if it wasn't for this pitching staff, meaning the starting rotation, I really feel like I would be a lot more excited about this team because they do have offense that looks like it can be lethal. They do have a lot of exciting young players like Victor Scott, like Mason Wynn, like Jordan Walker. The bullpen is much better than what we've seen the last couple of years, i.e. I'm not having to rely on Drew Verhagen to be a leverage pitcher for me. But I always go back to that starting rotation, and I look at it and I say, that's what you put out there? You have this offense, you have this bullpen, you've got the depth, you've got the talent, you've got the offense, and that's the rotation you provide this team to have success with. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope people are making me eat my words all season long for how great these guys look. But I find myself being frustrated every time I get excited for the start of the season because I'm like, all you needed to do is get one more pitcher. One more pitcher, and I would have been super hyped about this team being the best in the NL Central. And instead, we're talking about finding ways to win with this rotation.
Yeah, I'm so torn because, I love this offense. And, slug, baby, slug's been the thing that I've been talking about since I joined the show. And this team should slug. This bullpen is going to be big and sexy with the strikeouts. Whoo, man, they got all the things to make T-Bone excited. And then I look at the old man rotation and I go, oh, what in the hell is that? And I think the part of it is so frustrating is there's been multiple seasons now where it has been, man, this rotation. And then it was we're going to go get pitching. And I went, yes, we are so going to be the team that ends up doing all the right moves. And it was the bare minimum. This is the bare minimum. And I'm being told I'm wrong for thinking rotation being a problem. What the hell are you talking about? I feel like our friend of the show, Derek Gould, when he talked to Jack Flaherty last year, and Jack Flaherty was like, you don't know pitching. And that's how I feel the Cardinals are telling me.
Wilson Contreras didn't either.
Yeah, well, as we see, Jack was wrong and is in Detroit for a reason.
It's been very good in the spring so far.
Yeah, it'll talk to me here in a couple of weeks. That's how I feel, though. I feel like the Cardinals you don't know ball. You don't know pitching. This pitching staff's going to be fine. And I'm just looking at it going, man, I don't know how you can sell me on. Sure, innings, I'm totally in on a board on, you need to have innings from your starting pitching. I also saw that, Lynn, Gibson, and Michaelis gave up some of the most hits in baseball last season. So how am I supposed to buy into that on top of Lynn watched the ball sail around the ball out of the ballpark the most in the majors and had to always look at the umpire going, I need a new ball. I just cannot buy into this rotation. This rotation makes me so frustrated.
One signing one signing is or trade. One move is all they needed to do to change my outlook of, really, this is what you're putting out there, to hot damn, this is going to be an awesome team.
I am optimistic about what this team can be, but unfortunately my optimism is tamped down by what you guys are referencing here. I think the bullpen has a chance to be pretty good. I think the defense should be pretty improved this year. I think the base running is going to be way better, especially early in the season when we get to watch Victor Scott run the bases, which should be fun as hell. Mason Wynn, I think, is going to help you. I think this club has a lot of reasons to be excited for, man. Like yesterday, or 2 days ago, I guess it was, I was listening to the Fast Lane, and Anthony Stalter said something on the Fast Lane that I found to be really interesting, and I totally agree with it. Here's what he had to say.
I mean, if you're not necessarily excited about the future or this season of the Cardinals, this is a positive spin.
Yep.
You need young, exciting players to build the foundation moving forward. Jordan Walker is somebody you want to build the organization around. Mason Wynn, same deal. Hopefully Victor Scott winds up being a guy that came almost out of nowhere last year in the minors and then this year in the majors. You hope for that. Nolan Gorman. Those are the guys that you want to build upon. So I'm excited from a position player standpoint, this next wave for the Cardinals.
Those players that he just mentioned, Alex, Gorman, Scott, Walker, Wynn, 23, 23, 22, 21. The last time that the Cardinals went into a season opener, according to J.P. Morosi, posted this earlier today, with 4 position players aged 23 or younger, was 1924. There should be so much excitement about that today, man. So much excitement. These aren't just dudes that you throw into the order, right? It's not like throw-ins. Oh, yeah, well, we forgot to get a shortstop this year, so guess the young guys got to get an opportunity. That's not what happened here. Mason Wynn was a top 30 prospect in baseball, and you developed him. You drafted him, you developed him internally. That is the model for the St. Louis Cardinals. Hell, that's the model for every team. If you can draft and develop a shortstop, that is a massive win for everybody involved. If you can draft and develop a potential 40 home run hitter from the left side that can play capable defense wherever that happens to be on the diamond, huge win, overwhelming win, everybody involved, bravo. If you can then take a 6'5", 260-pound man that is 21 years old and have him go out there and as a rookie, yeah, it looks bad defensively, but hot damn, he's about 20% above league average offensively, and he gets back the next year and you're like, we might have even better results from him off. Dude, yeah. And then on top of all of that, you add in a guy that ran his way onto the club based on the way that he performed in spring training, and then with injuries helping him out, he has a clear path to the opening day. My God, man, you can't ask for anything better than this from a position player core. And I didn't even mention Brendan Donovan. I didn't mention 2 future Hall of Fame players that they have on the corners. I didn't mention last year's prize free agent that Alex was clamoring for at catcher. All of that is reasons to be excited. But because you look over at the rotation, it's the elephant in the room, people aren't as excited. In fact, people are looking at it and saying, there's no reason for me to even tune in half the time because I don't care about the guy that's on the mound. It's a filler. It's your version of Kasperi Kapanen. It's your version of Kevin Hayes. So why should I believe in this roster? When the Blues had these guys in the roster, they told me it was a retool. When the Cardinals are having these players in the roster, Alex, in prominent positions, they're telling me we're contending for October. Where's the disconnect there?
Yeah, and that's why I hate that it is at this point. And that's why I find the season so fascinating, because it's what we talked about yesterday. I don't think you could find an individual that's a Cardinals fan that isn't excited about the future talent that they have in the organization with all of these position players. But man, if it goes wrong this season, you're talking about having to veer in another direction to where, yeah, you've got these young position players, the Walker, the Gormans, the Donovans, the Wins, the Scotts, the Newbars, but you're moving on from the 2 pieces that had so many people believing they were going to be a World Series contender in Goldschmidt and Arenado, and now you're veering into uncharted waters of saying, well, now we got to focus on pitching, but our organization doesn't like to spend the top money to go get pitchers. They don't like to trade assets to get pitchers. So what do we do in this circumstance? But to have these pieces in place, I mean, to think about it, like if you look at another team and have all of those pieces, you're looking at it and saying World Series expectations.
Absolutely.
With all of them, when you talk about a lineup from 1 to 9 and thinking, damn, how do you get through this? World Series expectations. Imagine how bad the rotation has to be for it to go from World Series expectations to maybe 85 wins.
And that's how the Cardinals have built this roster, not just for opening day, but for the trade deadline. Like, you think about it, man. Think about the one-year contracts that exist currently on this roster, whether it's Paul Goldschmidt, who's entering his walk year, whether it's the 2 veteran starters that people are skeptical about at the back end of the rotation. They're both on one-year contracts that are guaranteed. You could move on from those if you need to. You think about what they have in terms of the young core group of players. That's building for the future as much as it is building for right now. The Cardinals are in a really interesting spot as an organization where they're telling you they're building for today. They're telling you they're trying to get to October and then get through October. And they might. It's possible that this all ends up working in a way that none of us are currently projecting. But if it doesn't, for the first time in a long time, they're in a place where they could end up trading future Hall of Famers at the trade deadline or in the offseason. They could be for the Dodgers, the Yankees, etc., other like legitimate pedigree programs, what the Rockies and the Diamondbacks and the A's have been to the Cardinals in previous iterations of this team. That's what is at stake heading into the 2024 season. There is more at stake this year than there has been at any time that I can remember since the DeWitt owners took over. And it all starts today. It all starts against the LA Dodgers, against the team that has been the headline of the offseason, spending $1 billion on 2 players. So what would it mean if the Cardinals go in there and take 3 out of 4 against that team? We want to talk about that on the other side. Plenty of negativity surrounding the St. Louis Cardinals. What about if they do exceed expectations early on this season? He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll give you the other side of this coin coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
I like the Cardinals' veteran mix with their young talent and what they did to the rotation. I know a lot of people in St. Louis aren't fans of Gibson and Lynn and Gray, but you're going to see that team ERA is going to come down dramatically, and the bullpen with Middleton now in it, who I've been a huge fan of, is going to be vastly improved. And I think the Cardinals are going to win over 90 games, and I'm bullish on that. And I would love to hear Mozeliak be as equally as bullish as I am that the Cardinals win over 90.
That was Greg Amsinger on the morning show a few weeks ago talking about the St. Louis Cardinals and why he's bullish on them to win 90 games in 2024 with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Joey Vitale will join us in about 10 minutes or so to talk about the Blues heading into their matchup against the Flames tonight. Alex, what if the Cardinals do prove us all wrong? Because, listen, there's plenty of skeptics. There's going to be a lot of negativity surrounding this team heading into the season. Deserved, honestly, negativity heading into the season. But there is always a positive way to look at a season. And on opening day, there's hope. There's optimism for a lot of fans that are, whether you're on our text line right now, you're listening in the car, you're listening at work, whatever. Everybody wants this team to be good. Even if you believe it's going to be bad, you're hoping that it is really good because that's best for all of us, right? Personally, professionally, anywhere in between. So, Alex, what if I tell you the Cardinals end up winning 3 out of 4, or they sweep the Dodgers? Nobody's predicting that, I don't think, on this show, but it's possible. Baseball's weird. Their Dodgers might lose 4 in a row this year to the Pirates. Like, weird stuff happens in this game. If they were to do that this weekend, how would it change, if at all, your outlook for the first month of the season?
All right, man, I got to really channel my inner creativity here to imagine this. Is it bad in that scenario, BK, that I ask a follow-up question, how did they win versus the Dodgers?
Sounds like something I would do, so no, I would say that's great.
God, son of a, this is actually bad then. Because, I mean, here's the thing. You could tell me that they win 3 or 4 against the Dodgers or they sweep the Dodgers, and that's awesome. But did you have to outscore the opponent 10-9, 11-10, 12-13 in 3 of those 4 games? Was your offense performing at like a historic level for the opening 4 games of a series in Major League Baseball history? Because I'm sorry, as much as excitement as that is, ask yourself realistically, is that sustainable for 162 games? Because if your pitching is getting blown up, but your offense is keeping you in the game, that's like 2 years ago when the Blues were making that push and we were like, guys, this isn't realistic to score 7 goals every single game. I just would be very skeptical of that, and it's hard for me to imagine. Now, if you tell me,
kind of like last year's opening day where they lost 10-9 against the Toronto Blue Jays and then won the next 2 games 4-1 and 9-4, like
and everyone,
that kind of thing.
And everyone was like Kevin Gossman saying it's hard to get through this lineup. Like, okay, talk to me 2 months from now, and we did, and it wasn't pretty. But if you're telling me that they win 3 of 4, if they sweep the Dodgers, and Michaelis, Lynn, Gibson all deal, then we're having a different conversation. Then I'm starting to be a lot more open to the idea of, hey, maybe I doubted this team too much. Maybe I'll start to give them a little bit more of a chance. 4 games against the Dodgers isn't going to change anything because, as you guys said, weird-ish happens in the beginning of the season. But if your pitching does better than I expect and you're winning games, I'll start to be a little bit more open about this Cardinals team.
Yeah, I think if the pitching pitches well, then I can kind of buy in a little bit. You know, I think you can say, and look, I'm not saying they have to go out and shove like Gibson's got to go 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, and 0 earned runs. But if they're kind of racking up a couple quality starts and they're like 6 innings, 1 earned run, 6 innings, 2 earned runs, I can convince myself of, okay, you know what, maybe I was wrong on the pitching. Where I will have some problems is if it's the offense that has to carry them. If they have to kind of put the pitching on their back and say, all right, because Alex is 100% right. It's just not a sustainable model. You know, you have to have good I don't even know if you have to have quality pitching. You just have to have good pitching to win in baseball. But if it ends up being where it is, man, they go through the Dodgers this order, they go through the Padres, they go through and we continue through the first month, and I'm looking at it going, man, this offense looks great, but this pitching staff is really struggling, then it's going to be hard for me to buy in. I think it is super important for the pitching staff, honestly, against the Dodgers in these first 4 games, to have just decent showings. Can I look at it and go, okay, I can dream on that a little bit. You know, I was able to dream on Gibson's last spring outing. 9 strikeouts.
Maybe a little too much.
Yeah, but that's it for me. I'm kind of with Alex. I can buy in as long as the pitching looks good.
That's where I'm at as well. I think that you need to see the pitching. I don't need it to be good. That's the thing. I think my bar to clear for this pitching staff is so low. I think it's pretty easy to clear it, honestly, but I don't know that they're going to be capable of doing so.
For you, it's real easy to clear it.
Hey, Lance Lynn, can you give me 6 innings regularly and give up like 3 earned runs? Hey, Zach Thompson, can you go out there, strike out like 6, give me 5 strong innings, give up, one day, give up 5, the next day, give up 4. That's kind of where I'm at with this rotation. I don't need it to be 8 innings, 1 earned run, 12 strikeouts. This is not like you mentioned Kevin Gausman. It's not like Kevin Gausman is at the front end of this rotation. Hey, Miles Michaelis, today against the Dodgers, you have one job. Can you get through 6? And can you do so to the tune of like 3 earned runs or fewer? If you can give them consistently quality starts, I can buy into what this rotation is going to be able to do for you, because I do think the bullpen will be quite good. And I do think this lineup should be really good. I think the defense should at least be better than it was a year ago. The base running should be better than it was a year ago.
Thanks, Victor Scott.
So there's ways that you can dream on this, but it all starts with that rotation. And last year, the reason why everything went sideways is because they got, that 10 in, 24 start or whatever it was.
Yeah, they were 9 games below 500.
I remember talking to Brad Ausmus, and he was on one of the last teams that was able to overcome such a terrible start. He was on that Astros team. I think it was 2005, if I'm not mistaken. And he was telling us about how he thinks that Cardinals team last year had the potential to be able to do what they did with the Astros. And he said the reason why is because I like their starting pitching. I think they've got the starting pitching to be able to get this thing turned around. The answer was obviously a resounding they very much did not. And if they get off to a slow start again this year, it will be for the same reasons. And the reasons why they weren't able to overcome it a year ago will still exist today. So, to go back to the optimism route. The optimism is if you go through this series against the Dodgers and you win 3 of 4 and the rotation looks really solid, hey man, it's one turn through, but it will give me a glimmer of hope, a reason to believe. And with the way that the NL Central is, that might be enough. And this is your toughest task. We talk a lot about how difficult this first month of the season is in terms of the schedule. A lot of that is based on 4 against the Dodgers, because after that, San Diego's a peer program for you. Miami should be worse than you. Philly, based on all of the projection systems, people think they are basically equivalent to you. The Arizona Diamondbacks, equivalent to you. The A's should be bad. The Brewers should be bad. The Mets aren't very good. The Tigers aren't very good. The White Sox are an abomination. And now we're all the way through down to May, and we're talking about the Angels and the Red Sox before we finally get to Baltimore. Now we're at May 20th. Okay, the schedule opens up in a pretty significant degree. It all comes back to this 4-game set. So much of this season, it's weird to say because it's only a 4-game set out of 162 games, but so much of it will be the trajectory of the season altered by what happens in these 4 days.
It is very strange because, I just don't want to be so reactionary to 4 games and say, oh, yeah, they're going to be better than anybody expected, because we all know what can happen throughout a season. But the way I'm going to be watching the game today and this series is, what's your competition level look like? Are you competitive with this type of team?
Yeah.
Because if you're going at this competitively with your pitchers, and really, I know what Miles Michaelis has to offer, so today's kind of like an anomaly. It's really once I see Lynn and Gibson and Matz for those first times, because those 3 to me are the swing players for this team. But does it look competitive? Are you out of the game by the 4th inning and you have to rely on your offense to get you back in? Or even if you give up 3 runs, are you within a run of this team early on? Because if you keep it competitive and you can have those at-bats against the opposition and you know your pitching can keep you into games, then I'm going to be feeling much more differently about this team, because I have these unrealistic expectations to where I feel like every time Lynn, Gibson, and Matt step on the mound, 6 runs are going to be given up by the 3rd inning. And you can't overcome that every game, every 2nd, 3rd, and 4th day of a turn through with that rotation. That is way too much pressure to be putting on your offense.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to questions and answers. Any questions that you guys may have, we'll get to those coming up here in just a little bit. But next, Joey Vitale joins the show to help us preview this game against the Flames. What's at stake here, and what does he expect from Zach Dean now that he's going to get an extended run in this lineup with Oscar Sundquist out for the rest of the season with his torn ACL? We'll talk to Joey about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling. The Blues will be back in action tonight as they will be taking on the Calgary Flames. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale, and then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. And Joey will join us next here on BK and Ferrario. And the Cardinals in action tonight as they are taking on the LA Dodgers. 3:10 will be first pitch as Miles Michaelis will get the start for St. Louis. Tyler Glasnow on the mound for LA. This Sports Update is brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Stater heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by our friend, the Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and Bally Sports Midwest. He is Joey Vitale, joining us on the show as he does each and every Thursday. Joe, appreciate the time, my man. How you doing today?
Joey! It's happening today in the Blues.
What's going on, fellas? Doing great. Better than I can ever be.
How are the hydrangeas?
Hey, what's that? You kind of broke up.
How are the hydrangeas doing, Joe?
Oh, buddy. Nothing gets me going like seeing a hydrangea bud. They are absolutely crispy right now. They are blossoming right where they need it to because you got to come down to that second knuckle right before that next bloom.
Mm-hmm.
I did a ton of research about this, and you know what? My wife is really pumped. What's even more exciting, there was one. I know this is so exciting, guys. Brace yourself for a minute. There was one I thought was completely dead. I just thought, you know what? But I thought, you know what? I'm going to give it a little bit more time.
Nice.
I did. Good news, guys. It's starting to come back.
You got to be patient with those hydrangeas, Joe.
Be patient with the hydrangea. Amen. That should be on a T-shirt.
It probably is because we're all about being patient here in St. Louis.
That's right.
Joe,
you got to wait for the Cardinals. You got to wait for the Blues.
Joe,
you got to wait for the
about
hydrangeas.
cicadas this time of the year?
Cicadas, big fan. Huge. Are we getting cicadas this year? Are we getting them this year?
We're getting the cicadas
once
and
in
the
100 years
locusts.
thing?
Yeah, I don't leave the house at that time.
Oh, my God. Are we actually – because they come out like every 17 years, don't they?
Yeah,
but
I
then
think
the
it's
other
like
one
once
is
every 100 years where they actually overlap in the
one's
same
every 27
season.
and one's every 17, and they're both overlapping this year.
When are they coming out? This is exciting.
Springtime, late spring.
Oh, my. I remember when I was in grade school, my dad would get underneath the tree.
Yes!
He would shake it. We'd have our tennis rackets and wiffle ball bats. It was savagery.
My dad
I've
used
never
to
heard anything more Midwestern. Never.
Joe, my dad he'd give me $100 if I'd go stand under a tree, take a bat, and hit the tree and stand there for 10 minutes.
Dude, I am returning every Easter toy I was going to get my kids. This is it. This is their entertainment for a month. You watch. They are going to be out in my front yard. I'll send you guys videos. In my front yard all spring. It is going to be it's just a grave site for cicada shells.
Yes.
It's going to be collecting in Kirkwood. I'm going to invite all the neighborhood. It is the best. And you know what? You don't feel all that bad because, listen, these little critters only come out once every 100 years. So I feel like, listen, if I was coming out once every 100 years, I would want someone to off me. That's just how I feel. So I'm actually doing them a favor.
All right, Joe, let's talk about these Blues. There is a little bit of a change up in the lineup, unfortunately, due to injury. Oscar Sundqvist going to be out the rest of the season, but it does mean an opportunity, and Zach Dean's going to be inserted into that lineup. What are you expecting from Dean? I know we have very little experience with him thus far, but what are you expecting out of him?
Yeah, really the only one game, BK, was in Ottawa. Of course, that was the game that Oscar Sundqvist got healthy scratched in, and you know, I thought it was just a really steady, vanilla first game. You know, Alex and I have talked about, you know, what Paul Maurice has said, and when he's talking about players playing their first game, I forget what player it was for the Panthers last year, but he said it's not about the player, it's about, you know, his parents, his family, his girlfriend, all the coaches and players and colleagues and everyone that got him to that point. So for the first game, I bring that up because, you know, did Dean do anything off the page exciting? No. Did he need to? No. I mean, it's your first game. You're working out the jitters. You've worked your whole life to this point. So there's going to be a lot of nerves, and it's really hard to evaluate your one and only NHL game. Now that one has passed he's been around this team for a few weeks, going back to when they won that game in Boston. He's starting to get a little bit more familiar. And that's important because when I talked to him about the success he was having in the American League versus when he came into the American League, when he came in, he had a slow start and he got injured. When he came back from that injury, he was the best player for the last 4 weeks before his call-up. I asked him what changed. He just said simply, I just got more comfortable. I got used to playing pro hockey. I got used to the travel and everything, just the steadiness and the rhythm of the day in, day out, nuts and bolts of the daily life of what it was. I just got used to that. So that kind of gives you a little perspective on his comfort level and what he needs to do in order to find that comfort level, to find his game. And I just think being around this team for the last few weeks, even though he's only played the one game, is certainly going to help that comfort level. And you know what? When he's at his best, Drew Bannister said just moments ago, I just left the Enterprise Center, he's playing fast. He's got great speed, great wide speed. And I think that when you look at the wingers he's going to surround himself with, whether it be a Walker or Toropchenko throughout stretches of this game, maybe even Bolduc if he gets dropped down, some familiarity there as well. I think playing with fast players is really going to suit him very well.
Joe, the other element that I'm really excited to see, and I know we got it for like 1.5 periods in that last game against Vegas, is Bannister's going to a line combination that I've been clamoring for a while. It's Buchnevich and Thomas and Neighbors together, and then Saad, Shen, and Kyrou. Do you think that trio on both lines can be successful?
I do. I think they needed to move Buchnevich back to wing. I think that it was a good experiment. I thought the Blues were winning. You're winning without a lot of offensive production from Buchnevich, so it was something I think they stuck by. But I think that now they're looking at it, can you continue to build up wins with having Buchnevich be more productive on the wing? And they're hoping that they find that right chemistry. I think that, Buchnevich, he, to me, just has never really looked completely comfortable on faceoffs. I think he's fine in the defensive zone, and offensively, I think it suits him actually better because he can be creative from the middle. But I think that, the faceoffs, even though the team has been doing very well lately, I think it's something he's kind of suffered in, and I think it's just kind of taking him away from his game. I think he feels comfortable on that left side, and that to me is going to be a really, really fun line to watch here tonight because Thomas, I think he's looking for a little bit of a bounce-back game. He's not really happy. I talked to him personally a couple of games ago. He's not loving where his game is at. He's doing some great things, but he knows he's got another level. And then you're joining the hottest Blues winger right now in Jake Neighbors, who is just riding this incredible wave. And crazy to think that, he may end up with the most goals from this Blues team by the end of the year. I never would have guessed that. I know Kyrou's right there as well, Buchnevich including them too. But Jake Neighbors just continues to ride that hot wave. So you're hoping that some of that hotness rubs off there on Buchnevich.
Final thing for you, Joe. I do want to ask a little bit of a follow-up on that. The Athletic had a piece earlier today on the most underrated centers in the NHL. And at number 1 on that list, they had Robert Thomas. And I found this to be really interesting. They said Robert Thomas has been tasked with a defensive shutdown responsibility, logging the most minutes in the NHL on going against elite competition. No other forward in the NHL, according to The Athletic, has had more difficult matchups so far this season. When you think about that, Joe, and what it means for the wingers on his line, what are you looking for long-term in terms of what kind of players should be playing up there with Robert Thomas?
It's first of all, I saw that piece as well, and it's great to see Robert Thomas starting to get some recognition nationally wide, which we knew for a long time in our little bubble here in St. Louis. But from a national scale, he's starting to, really raise some eyebrows. Brad Richards talked about him last week in the thing he put together. He's his top 5 centerman right now, and Robert Thomas was included with the McDavids and the McKinnons. I mean, it was an incredible class he was included in. So it's good to see his recognition starting to kind of get around the circuit a little bit. And that's what's been really impressive about his game this year. It's yes, the offense has been there. It's great to see him become an all-star there and going to Toronto. But it's been defensively. I mean, he has taken such a major leap this year defensively, starting with his face-offs. I mean, even just killing penalties. But you're right. He has to go up against other teams' top lines every single night. When he came into the league, you looked at a centerman group of O'Reilly, Tyler Bozak, Braden Shen. I mean, even Sundqvist was there a little bit in the middle there, even Ivan Barbashev. I mean, when I hear O'Reilly and I hear Bozak and you think of Shen, you hear Barbashev, to me, I think defensive forwards, shut down centermen, right? This year is just different. Do you know what I mean? I mean, Kevin Hayes, he's an offensive powerhouse. He's a guy in the offensive zone that's going to get it done. He's great on draws. But you don't think Kevin Hayes is a defensive, shut-down centerman. He's never been that in his life. He's always been the kind of the goal scorers on that line. So what's been different about this year is that Robert Thomas has kind of been on an island about kind of he is the guy because they don't really have a lot of other, let's call it those top caliber shutdown centermen. So he's been getting those responsibilities all year long. And that's what continues to amaze me about these top centermen in the league is they're getting these tough matchups. And for these top centermen who are not only being given the responsibility of shutting down, but they're still getting offensive numbers as well, that's when it's a whole nother level of eliteness. You're talking to McDavid, McKinnon, kind of threshold, Sidney Crosby's going against the best, shutting down the best, and getting goals. And that's what we have to look forward to for Robert Thomas. You know, a Buchnevich winger to me is absolutely ideal. I think Jake Neighbors on his right side over Jordan Kyrou, I think has really done a lot of great things for Robert Thomas too. You know, Kyrou certainly got the offensive ability, but when you're a shutdown centerman in Thomas, you're going to need support. Buchnevich has got a great 200-foot game. I think Jake Neighbors' 200-foot game is growing. I think he is going to slowly become what Braden Shen is right now. I think he is heading in that direction. So I love that top line that Drew Banish is going with, not only because offensively he can get it done, but you got three guys on that line that are so committed to defensive hockey where, you know, it may not mean as much tonight against a struggling Calgary Flames team, but when you start, you know, creeping into the Dallases and you start kind of turning the corner on some of these other big teams that are going to be playing Nashville next week, you're going to need those top lines, no doubt.
Been waiting for it. Looking forward to watching it tonight. Blues versus the Flames. You'll hear pregame coverage with Alex and Joe starting at 6 o'clock right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Puck drop for that one tonight at 7. Joe, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk with you again soon.
Sounds good, boys. You guys have a great week.
See you, Joey.
And Joey Vitale joining us as he does each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. Always appreciate his time. Alex, we're going to get into that story on The Athletic a little bit later on this afternoon.
Stop. It is time. For the illustrious lineup game.
Oh, yeah. And we get the first of the season.
If you haven't listened in the past, we created the lineup game. It's something that we do every day here on this
started on
specific
this show by BK and Ferrario. Tanner has
we go through the lineup
all of them.
and we guess it. We'll tell you who's batting leadoff all the way down to the 9 hole. We got to guess where they're playing as well because that helps us fill out the lineup.
And might I say, we are the best at the lineup game on the station.
Well, it was pretty hard last year when there was Mater floating around.
Well, that's true. BK got angry an awful lot about that one.
Yeah.
Well, wait till he hears Carp sitting DH in
I
fifth
think
today.
this is going to be the easiest lineup game that we have done with Ollie Marmol as the manager. I think that will be the case.
Well, Ollie doesn't make it, though. Mo does, and Gersh hands it off to Mo, and Gersh takes it down to the locker room.
All right, batting leadoff today for your St. Louis Cardinals. Alex, my assumption is this will be Brendan Donovan, and I believe he will be playing in left.
And the great words of John Hewlett, Brendan Donovan.
All right, way to go, Donnie!
All right, so you got a lefty at the top.
This
I believe
is
that to
Marp.
be the correct decision. This will be Paul Goldschmidt batting second and playing first, in my opinion. Do you agree?
Hit me that gold member.
I love gold.
Greatest character from that episode, by the way.
We know Ollie's going left, right. He loves the way that looks. I love the way that Nolan Gorman fits into the 3-hole playing at
Hang
second
on.
base.
Marp is a lefty.
Had a great spring.
Marp is a lefty. It's Gorman.
Get your fresh organic popcorn.
Get your popcorn ready.
May I for this one? Nolan Arenado!
Nolan is a security guard at the lumber yard.
Mr.
I like that.
99%.
That's well done. All right, batting fifth for the Cardinals, as he did basically the entirety of the 2023 season, Wilson Contreras.
Well done! Well done! Well done! Well done! Well done!
Now,
All right, here we go. This is the one spot
is
where
Marp.
it gets interesting.
This is Marp.
Let's set it up here. They are going left, right. And then they get to Arenado and Wilson Contreras.
It's two righties.
And you got two righties back to back.
Got to be a lefty here.
If you go with Jordan Walker, that would be back-to-back right-handed hitters. I think those are your three best players to put here, but having three righties going up against a right-handed pitcher is a bold decision.
But you're doing three righties no matter what. Either here or if you don't do it here, you're doing three righties at the bottom.
Scott's a lefty.
Oh, is he? For some reason, I thought he was a righty.
You should know our best players when he hits.
I know who our best
What the
player
hell's
is,
wrong
and it's
with you?
Marp, and he's a lefty.
I think the other options are Alec Burleson at DH or Matt Carpenter at DH. I believe this will be and should be Alec Burleson. Where do you fall, Alex?
really think it's going to be Matt Carpenter. It's the DH. It's a lefty, so it comes down to Burley or Mark.
I'll let you decide.
We'll go Burley. I'm going to put my hopes in Ollie, put together a good lineup.
There we go.
Let's go.
You're so rugged and manly.
It's the right call. Burleson had a great spring. He's a young player. He's shown an ability to hit. It's the right decision. I believe that at the home opener, you go with Matt Carpenter. The opening day of the season, I think it's got to be.
I think it's important to celebrate when Matt Carpenter does good things.
All right. Jordan Walker is going to be batting fifth, correct? Or seventh, correct?
Yep.
Walk it like I talk it, talk it. Walk it like I talk it, ay. Walk it like I talk it. Walk it like I talk it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Batting eighth.
I think
this is where it gets interesting again. You got a decision here, 8-9.
It's a triple leadoff no matter what, so it really doesn't matter. But are we?
No such thing as triple leadoff.
Are you going to put Scott and cover him up with? I don't even know how that's covering him up with Mason Wynn. Or are you going to put Scott in the 9
It does give you a righty-lefty look to the bottom of your lineup if you do that. I think they're going to put Victor Scott at the bottom and just tell him, based on their actions, based on their words, do not worry about your offense. You're good, man. But I would personally, I still think batting him eighth makes a little bit of sense. But I could go either way. Alex, I'll leave this up to you.
I could go either way. I don't think it should be up to me here because we'll go with you.
Let's go Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn batting eighth.
You could do better.
Oh, okay.
So
Victor
they're going Scott eighth.
And one left, right.
And Brandon Crawford ninth.
I want to go fast.
Nice. Yeah, and then we got Mason Wynn.
I'm watching the Futures game, and this thing's all over Instagram. It's like, this guy threw a ball 100 across the. That's awesome, but how many throwing errors does he have?
Shut up! Oh, okay. I see you, Marshy. All right, T-Bone, can you run it for us?
All right, the opening day lineup leading off in the left, Brendan Donovan batting second, Paul Goldschmidt at first. Then it'll be Nolan Gorman batting third at second. Cleanup, Nolan Arenado at third base. Then Wilson Contreras catching. Batting sixth, the DH, Alec Burleson. Batting seventh, the right fielder, Jordan Walker. Batting eighth, Victor Scott the second. And batting ninth, Mason Wynn. And on the mound will be Miles Michaelis.
All right, so the three decisions that they had to make here were Burleson over Matt Carpenter at DH, batting sixth instead of Jordan Walker. So you've got those guys that could be interchangeable throughout the season. And then 8-9, Victor Scott or Mason Wynn. What do you think of the decisions?
I could have gone either way with it. I like it. I mean, you're at least doing some type of protection for Victor Scott. You're putting him after Jordan Walker, so maybe you see ideal hits. But I could have gone either way with that. I really don't think it matters because those two guys, I'm not worried about their offense. I'm all about their defense. So you could have put him 8-9 with Scott Wynn Scott. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I have no issue with the lineup. I probably would have hit Scott ninth, but if you're talking 8-9 and how they're hitting, then your line was pretty good, and I'm not concerned.
I kind of like having Victor Scott in front of Mason Wynn just because Scott's speed in front of Mason Wynn is going to be a lot of fun. My one concern would be
when Walker's on base in front of Victor Scott.
Burleson. If you have Alec Burleson or Jordan Walker on base in front of him. Now, that could happen as well if he's batting ninth, but it's less likely to take place in those scenarios. If you do it, it could clog the bases for Victor Scott and make it more difficult for him to be able to use that speed that you want to feature. But that's my only quibble with it. I don't have a problem with him batting eighth. That's where I said originally that I would bat him just because I like the idea of him in front of Mason Wynn.
Another reason that I would like Scott 9 is we don't talk about it enough, but sometimes what you'll see if a runner like Scott gets a great jump, someone like Mason Wynn, who's more of a free swinger, may not take the pitch and allow him to steal the base. He may try and swing at it. Brendan Donovan, I like him kind of in that double leadoff because Donovan's got such a great eye. He may be willing to take that pitch more likely.
That's T-Bone. He's Alex. I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. You give us a question, we'll try to give you an answer here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, let's start with this from the 314. Alex, do you believe that Jake Neighbors will be the long-term partner with Robert Thomas in the lineup?
Yeah, I do. I think what you're seeing with Zach Hyman playing with Connor McDavid is what you're going to see with Jake Neighbors and Robert Thomas. I mean, with the article we're going to get to and with what Joe said, you can't play Kyber with Thomas anymore. Yeah. If he is getting the top line matchups, you can't play Kyber with him anymore. Thomas needs somebody who not only is good on the offensive side and physical, but is responsible. I'm not going to say he's great, Jake Neighbors, because he's still young, but you need some responsibility on that defensive side, and I think you need a power forward with Robert Thomas. He's such a playmaker that if he starts finding space, shooting pucks like he's done this season, Jake Neighbors is going to be a 40-goal scorer at some point.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he's probably the long-term partner, at least until, maybe if Snuggerud determines he's on top of that line, if they keep Booch. There's some scenarios where I can see it's not the answer for them long-term, but I think you're right. I think you want a guy that's going to drive the net with Thomas as a playmaker, and then you probably want someone that's a shooter on the other side.
From the 314, guys, do you think that the NHL should change the draft order so that the last team eliminated from the playoffs ends up with the first overall pick?
No.
I do not.
No, I love the lottery that they do. I think it creates excitement for fans.
Yeah, I'm still hoping we win, baby.
I also think that what you'd end up with there, and teams would never admit it, you'd have teams that are like tanking out of the playoffs. If you're the last team in, for a lot of teams, organizationally, it actually makes better sense to get the number one overall pick than it would to get bounced in that first round.
Yeah.
So it would present some really ugly scenarios for them.
And I think that makes trade deadlines less interesting, too, because now teams aren't going to be willing to trade pieces off when they know they're out of it, because why? I'll keep it and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm going to keep Timo Meier or Tomas Hertl or whoever the guy is at this year's deadline, and healthy, obviously, to be able to keep increasing my odds of winning to get the number one overall pick.
Because if I miss the playoffs, I'm going to get a top pick. So it's like, screw that. Yeah, and I also think you're going to have those bad teams be bad for a very long time.
Guys, Vegas, their next 3 games, they've got the Jets, the Wild, and the Canucks. Over the Blues' next 3 games, they have Calgary, San Jose, and the Oilers. If the Blues go 3-0, do you think they have a chance to be within 2 points of Vegas?
No, because I think Vegas is going to, at the bare minimum, get points in all 3. I think they win that Vancouver game because it's at home, and I'll say it's a 50-50 split of them winning one of Winnipeg or Minnesota. So, no, I just think right now what you need is Vegas to go 0-for while you go on a undefeated stretch for a little bit, and I just don't see that happening with Vegas. They got a point against Nashville. If there was a game that they were going to get nothing in, it was that game against Nashville, and they found a way to get 1 point.
Yeah, I agree.
And they're getting healthier, too, by the way. Petro's going to be back either on this game or he's going to be back in that Minnesota Wild game. And Tomas Hertl is expected to play in that Vancouver game.
Yeah, I can't see it. I think you're right. You need them to go over while you go 3-0 if you want to get back. And that would put you even with them at 86 points. You need that.
Yeah. And you'd catch them in the regulation wins, too, in that scenario.
Final question, guys. Who's going to lead the Cardinals in stolen bases this season? That's a really interesting question. Really interesting question.
Big Fundy. Ooh. Number 2 hole, he's going to be running all the time.
He's getting old. Let's relax, Goldie. I'm going to say, I'm going to say Scott. I think he could, even if he doesn't stay up with the big league club, I know everybody wants the Cardinals steal bases. Who's their base stealers right now outside of Scott? Wynn's got some speed. Is he going to get on it? Is he going to get on enough?
Edmund was supposed to be, but
he's kind of hurt.
When is he going to play?
I think Walker's going to steal a lot too.
And then when he gets back, he's got a wrist issue. Is that really somebody that you want to have stealing bases regularly?
Walker has speed, but man, he gets caught a lot. We got to work on his.
Walker
base
only
stealing.
stole 7. Walker had the same number of stolen bases last year as Nolan Gorman.
Wow, I'm shocked Gorman had
That's
7.
crazy, right?
He was plagued by guys in front of him, though. Too many slow dudes.
Wilson Contreras had 1 fewer stolen base than Jordan Walker a year ago. So I would not go with Jordan Walker. By the way, Goldie, to your point, Alex, he was tied for second on the team last year with Lars Newbar.
Big Fundy,
he had 11 stolen bases.
Now, if I would have said Nolan Arenado, I would have understand that face you just made. Yep. But Big Fundy's going to take care of business.
Goldie had 11, and that was second on
I think it's going to be Mason Wynn. I would go Mason Wynn as the guy that leads the team in steals.
I would go Victor Scott. I think you're going to probably see a 2-month hiatus where he's not here, but then the rest of the season he'll be with this team.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, the Cardinals are selling this idea of quality starts. Quality starts are the way to win in Major League Baseball. Is it actually, though? We'll talk about that coming up next here on 101 ESPN. The St. Louis Cardinals are selling something. They're telling you, hey, all we need to do, Alex, is find a way to get through 6 innings with 3 earned runs from our starters, and we're going to be in a good spot.
All we need to do is score more runs than the other team, and we're going to win.
I thought you were going to say they're selling Goldie already. I was like, wow, it's kind of early to determine that.
It'd be the time to do it, though. Pounce early.
That is the definition of a quality start. 6 innings, 3 earned runs. Now, People will tell you when they look at the quality start, and the reason why it is still a good statistic, generally speaking, it's kind of like plus minus in the NHL. Flawed, but when you look at it at the end of the year, the best players are typically the ones that have the best plus minus. A lot of the time, right? There's outlier performances here and there, but it is something that you can look at to generally get an idea of who some of the best players are in the NHL. For baseball, if you look at quality starts, it will lead you in the correct direction. But that's because it includes starts where a guy goes 8 innings and allows 1 or no earned runs as well within it, right? The bare minimum, though, to reach that quality start threshold is 6 innings and 3 earned runs. I was thinking to myself, Alex, the other day, and this is after we had the conversation that I made you mad about Miles Michaelis having a 4.6 ERA and whether or not that would actually be okay for the Cardinals, right? Whether or not you would, or no, it was Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. Would you sign up for them to have 4.6 ERAs this season? And the answer for you was no. And then I read this comment.
No, mine was Michaelis at 3.6. I said I wanted it to be better.
We also had a conversation about the other two, but set it aside. Michaelis was asked about his season last year in which he had a 4.7 ERA at the end of the year. And this came from Katie Wu's story. Quote, it's funny. 4.7 ERA is just north of a 4.5. And a 4.5 is a quality start every single time that you go out. If you had a guy and you said, hey, this guy's going to make 30 starts, he's going to have a 4.5 ERA, a lot of people, especially on Twitter, would say, that guy stinks. But if I told you that guy was going to throw 6 innings every single time out and would give up exactly 3 runs, that's a guy that gives your team a chance to win a whole lot of ball games. That's something that I, generally speaking, would probably agree with until I looked into the results. Alex,
is this where you apologize to me again? Man, what a day. Opening day, Blues, BK apologizing again.
Over the last 3 years, teams are 222 and 289 when their starter goes exactly 6 innings and gives up exactly 3 earned runs. They are well below 500 in those games, which honestly surprises the hell out of me. I did not think that would be the case. When I looked this up, I assumed like 60% win percentage, probably somewhere around there. You're getting 6 innings. It's a good start in terms of the innings out of your starter nowadays. 3 earned runs. I do agree with Miles Michaelis. That should give your team a chance to win. For you to win like 40% of those games is pretty shocking to me. So, Alex, this is the way that the Cardinals have set everything up, is to get that start that I just referenced. And the teams that have had that start that I just referenced over the last 3 seasons are well below 500. What does that mean for the way that they're building out this rotation?
It means you need to have like better than quality starts from these guys, because this is where my concern came from. I just don't think quality starts are going to be enough. Now, if we're talking about 4 of these 5 guys providing those for you for 50% of the season, we're talking about you're in a really good spot. But, I mean, I just looked at this. So between Lynn and Matt's last season, they combined for a total of 57 starts, and 14 of those 57 combined between those two were quality starts. 6 innings or more with 3 earned runs.
Oh, never mind. I think it's significantly more than that, but it's 3 earned runs or fewer. It doesn't
That's
matter.
what I looked at.
Okay.
No, were you looking at 3 earned runs exactly?
No, 3 earned runs or less, 6 innings or more. Isn't that the quality start?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 14 of their 57 last year between those two teams. So, between those two guys. I think you're going to need, if those guys aren't providing that for you, I think you're going to need at least 2 of the pitchers in your rotation to provide Cy Young-esque seasons. That's what's going to get them. Now, if we're talking about an offense being at the top of Major League Baseball all season, then you could figure it out. It doesn't matter with these guys, because even if they give you less than a quality start, if they give you 5 innings and give up 5 earned runs, if your offense is great, you're going to find a way to overcome it. But as we talked about in the open, it's just a very hard thing to sustain all season long. So when I look at where this is at and those numbers that you just pulled up, I think it's going to have to be better than quality starts by these guys.
Yeah. I don't think If Gibson and Lynn can go the 6 innings and 3 earned runs, I think that's actually really good for the Cardinals because that's that 4.5 ERA that we're talking about. If you can get that from those two guys, I think that is really good for St. Louis. I think what it does is it says, okay, when Lynn and Gibson are on the mound, you talk about, well, what does this mean? It means the offense needs to go out and have a good game. The offense needs to score 5 runs in that outing. I don't think it's so much the pressure on the pitching as it is more so on, okay, can our offense show up 2 out of the 5 times through the rotation churn, or I put it at 3. I don't know if Matz can do that very often where he goes 6 and 2 runs or fewer, but he can do 3. 3 out of the 5 times through the rotation, the offense is going to have a really good performance to really back those guys and provide run support. That's what I think this shows us is, okay, I think though it is a 400 winning percentage, I think if you have a really good offense, they can mask some of that winning percentage that we're talking about there because you don't have the guy that's like a Zach Wheeler that's going to go out and go 8 innings and throw, 1 hit ball and allow no earned runs. Maybe Sonny Gray does that when he gets back, but anybody else in this rotation is not going to do that. So I think in these outings with the 3, 4, 5 starters for the Cardinals, that's when that run support really has to come through for St. Louis.
Yeah, I agree with you, but when I look at this and I see that over the last few seasons, you're talking about like a 420, a 410, and a 415 winning percentage for these teams that got these kinds of starts. It does change my opinion on it, and it's hard not to, honestly. Like it puts a lot of pressure on your offense because we always talk about it. We talked about it a lot last year, and people would get mad at us of, hey, it's kind of the goal scoring conversation with the Blues. Goal scoring is not consistent. You don't just go like. Typically, the way that it works for a 30-goal scorer, it's not like he scores a goal in 30 games, and they're not all going to be big goals. 5 of them are going to be empty netters. He's going to have a few games where he has a hat trick, a couple of games where he has 2 goals in it. And so, like, the vast majority of the season, even for really good goal scorers, they're not going to score a goal in that game. And so you look at it and you're like, man, it feels like it's been forever since so-and-so scored a goal in a game. And to apply that to baseball, the same thing is true in a lot of ways for offense. Like, offense is not consistent. It requires a lot of different moving pieces to work together simultaneously. Like, in one individual game, your offense might not score a single run. And then in the next one, it might all come together for you. And this is what the offense was last year, honestly. You scored 12. And so it comes out, and in the wash, you score an average of 6 runs over those 2 games. Pretty damn good. I think we'd all sign up for the Cardinals to score 6 runs on average this year. But it's really about how it happens. And if this is the way that your rotation's going to be, man, you better be a highly consistent offense because you're going to require that out of them. If your starting pitching is giving up regularly 3 runs on basically every start, and then your bullpen, like, even if they're really good, they might give up 1 more. You're going to have to win a lot of games 5-4. And that's like asking your hockey team to win a bunch of games 3-2. You can do it. It's possible. If you're really good, you probably are going to be able to do it. But it's a hard way to live, both as a hockey team and in baseball as a baseball team.
And I was going to say it adds pressure to the bullpen as well because, if you do go 3 runs, I say you probably 4 runs is where it's going to be tough to win a ball game because I think most offenses average around 4 runs a game. So if that means I'm giving up 3 with my starters, that means every time that happens, the bullpen has to be locked down that day. Like, they cannot have a blip on the radar like, say, JoJo comes in and gives up a solo home run. All right, well, now we're at that 4 mark. Like,
you're asking 2 sides of your team to be perfect.
It is so tough for the bullpen to constantly be throwing up zeros. You need to give them a little bit of wiggle room as well, along with the offense. So I think if this does occur, I don't think it's so much of like, hey, you need more from Lynn, Gibson, and Matson. I think that's actually who they are, and I think that's what the Cardinals signed up for, to our point. I think when those 3 guys are starting, if that's probably they're probably more likely going to have these kind of quality starts that we're talking about than the 2 runs or fewer. You really need the bullpen to be shut down, and you really need the offense to have a really good game that day.
We got this from the 3-1-4. Guys, teams win 67% of the quality starts that they get. I don't know where you're getting your info from. Correct. A quality start, though, it encapsulates a lot of different kinds of starts.
It's not just 6 innings and 3 earned runs. It's the 8 innings and 1 earned run.
And when your starter gives you a complete game shutout, yeah, you're going to win that like basically 100% of the time. And so you would expect that to be the case. I wanted to look into the kind of quality starts that the Cardinals are probably expecting a lot of out of Gibson and Lynn, because they got these guys for that kind of a game. They're not expecting Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn to regularly get them through 8 innings with 1 earned run allowed. It's just not likely, right? So when they get that 6 innings, 3 earned runs, what is the likelihood that they win that game? The 6 innings, 3 earned runs, which is, I would think, a pretty good outcome if those guys give you that over the course of the season regularly. And then I looked into it, and you win roughly 42% of the time, which puts you at a 70 win pace. So if you're getting that out of Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn on a regular basis, you're on a 70 win pace for those games, man, what it really does is it puts a ton of pressure for Miles Mikolas and Sonny Gray to be amazing this season.
Right.
Like, those kinds of outcomes from your 3 and 4 starters means your 1 and 2 starters better be dynamite. And you're already without your number 1 starter early in the season, which puts even more pressure on Miles Mikolas. We knew this. This is why Miles Mikolas was so high on our 20 most important Cardinals list. But the more I think about it, the more I think, man, that guy, everything swings on his outcomes this year.
Right.
It's all about what does Miles Mikolas do for
And
you.
that's why, going back to it, like, by no means do I believe a 3.6 ERA is bad. I just think for this team, you need 2 guys pitching to Cy Young caliber to have success this season, unless your offense is historically great. And in that case, I don't think it really matters what any of these guys do.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to have Cy Young from Mikolas, but are you really good? And there's at least like conversation of, could he get like 1 vote? Like, that's what I would put.
That's
Mikolas
what I mean.
at.
Yeah, I'm talking about like when he 2 years ago.
I don't think you need like what the Cardinals had in 2022, where they had Goldie and Arenado 1 and 3 in the MVP voting. You don't need that Cy Young wise, but I agree. You're going to have those guys short load. And honestly, what they really need is they need Matz to go on like he does this where there is like a 6-7 game stretch where he is arguably their best pitcher in their staff. And can he do that? And can he do that more consistently? Can he be one of those guys that isn't doing the 6 and 3 runs? He's more of the 6 and 2 runs, 6 and 1 run. He has the potential to do it. I mean, when he came back into the rotation last year, he was awesome.
That were his 4 quality starts last year, were those last 4 games of the season.
He was awesome for the Cardinals when he came back. They've got to get that version of Steven Matz.
Yeah, and I think Mikolas has to do what he did 2 years ago, where you're talking about a 200-plus innings, 3.29 ERA. That right there tells me, yeah, you're in a really good spot if you're the Cardinals.
It's going to be interesting, man.
But Gray needs to also do that, if not better.
I do think there's value in starters giving you innings in a way that I don't think that Major League Baseball teams are appreciating enough. I think that we are seeing that teams across the league realize we've got to go to one of 2 routes. We've either got to go with the starters that give us those innings, or we've got to get 12 starters. And there's most teams that are contenders are going route number 2, right? The Texas Rangers have like an extra rotation on the IL right now. The Dodgers have an extra rotation on the injured list right now. Meanwhile, the Cardinals are going into the first bucket of, we think these guys are going to give us innings. And this year we're going to learn which way is the right way to go. And the Cardinals are betting big on it. They're betting, honestly, their jobs on it in a lot of ways. When I saw this statistic earlier today, it made me more nervous than what I was previously. I was probably higher on this rotation, Alex, than you were. I know. I was definitely higher on this rotation than you were.
It's hard to be lower than I am on this rotation.
And after seeing some of the numbers on, hey, how likely is it for you to win a game when the Cardinals get the ideal outcome from Lynn and Gibson, it made me a little nervous.
Now, this is why, though, like, if you were to talking about putting about Montgomery or a Snell or one of those trades into this rotation, and we're still having this conversation about the quality starts from these guys, I think we're having a different tone right now.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we got to talk about Robert Thomas. He was listed by The Athletic as the most underrated center in the NHL. It's why he was listed in that regard that interested me and how it applies for the Blues moving forward, how they build around him. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Tomer, for me, looking, in the future, like there's a good possibility, you could see a star one day. He has the ability to be a star. Now, whether he gets there or not, that's a lot has to do with him and certain things that go into it. But he definitely has the brains and the ability to be one.
That is what we heard from Craig Berube. I believe it was 3 off seasons ago, talking about Robert Thomas's future and why he believes he can be a star in this league. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Alex, I think it's fair to say Robert Thomas is a star now in the NHL. Now, the next step for him is becoming a superstar. And the way to do that is a 100-point season and a potential Selke trophy. And all of those conversations are possible if you're with the correct winger. That is a necessary thing, and we talked to Doug Armstrong about that during this season, about how you can get the most out of Robert Thomas, how you can capitalize on having this kind of a star player in your lineup. Well, The Athletic earlier today put together a list of the most underrated centers in the NHL. The top player on that list was Robert Thomas. And I thought the most important part of this was not that he was ranked at number 1. We all know locally, yeah, he's an underrated player. He's really good. It was why they felt that way. Here's what The Athletic wrote. Robert Thomas has been tasked this year with becoming a defensive shutdown responsibility. He's logged the most minutes in the NHL among the forwards against elite-level competition. Thomas is in the top 10 among centers in points, plays some of the most difficult defensive matchups of all forwards in the league, and is decisively winning those daunting matchups. He's a two-way workhorse whose breakout isn't captured as much as attention as it should because of the futility that St. Louis has as a team. The logging the most minutes among elite competition among all NHL forwards, Alex, that's the part I want to hone in on here. That is obviously bringing his numbers down a bit. Like, because he is going up against the most difficult matchups possible, you would expect the offense to come back a bit. 1, because those matchups are really good offensively, and so they're going to have more zone time, and it's harder for him to score when he's in his own zone. 2, because he's going up against better teams, better players. Those matchups are more difficult to score against. So that all kind of keeps his numbers a little bit further down than it would otherwise. The other thing is he's got 2 wingers that are with him that also have to go up against those same matchups, Alex. And when you think about Jordan Kyrou, for me, I want him exploiting the other team's weaknesses more than I want him going up against their biggest strength. This is why I've been talking about it, and I say I think he's a number 2 or second line forward, not necessarily a top line forward for this team. That's not even necessarily a shot against him. It's just how I want him to be utilized within this lineup, especially given how they use Thomas and the Parayko pairing. When you think about what this means for how they build around Robert Thomas, Alex, on that top line, winger-wise, what do they need for Robert Thomas next time?
I think you need 2 things. I think you need somebody who is defensively responsible and reliable, and I think you need a guy who can put up 40-plus goals. Like, I look at the guy I always go to with Robert Thomas, and I think he's having this breakout season, is Alexander Barkov with the Florida Panthers. And I mean, like, when they did that original Athletic list of the top centermen, and like they had Thomas like 3 levels below Barkov, and it's like, what the hell are you talking about? If you go through this list of other centers, I mean, there's only one other one that I would put in the same conversation as Robert Thomas. All these other guys are like, man, who are they?
The underrated?
Yeah, list? The underrated guys. Like the other guy I would put in there is Adam Lowry. I think Adam Lowry is way underrated, but it's a different type of underrated. But like, Robert Thomas has more points than Alexander Barkov this season. And when people talk Barkov, they're like, oh, well, he's one of the top centermen in the game because he's defensively reliable and he gives you 60 to 80 points every single season. But when I go through the seasons of 70 points, 90 points, 80 points, 70 points, Huberdeau, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Reinhart. What I just mentioned there is Barkov's your shutdown centerman, but you find ways to exploit those lines with the wingers with him. And so that's why when I look at Robert Thomas, I'm thinking, okay, who's the defensive player reliability right now that I want with him? It would be Pavel Buchnevich. I think Pavel Buchnevich is a goal scorer, but he's also your best 200-foot player right there with Robert Thomas. And this is why I want Jake Neighbors with him rather than Jordan Kyrou. Because if you're playing against the other team's top line, the way you can exploit those other team's top lines is with size and speed going to the front of the net. And it's what Edmonton has accomplished. It's what Florida's accomplishing right now. And it's what the Blues can accomplish. When Robert Thomas is a guy who can create space with his talent alone, get somebody who's going to go to the front of the net and clean up the trash. And that's what Jake Neighbors does. And what you can't do, and why I just didn't like the lines that were Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, and then whomever they put there, it worked a little bit with Pavel Buchnevich, but it fell off pretty quick, is you've got three guys doing the same thing. You've got three guys who are playing exterior, who are hoping that shots come to them, that a lane opens up. Some point you got to get somebody who's going to go in and do the hard work for your centerman, and that's what Robert Thomas needs right now. In an ideal world in the future, I think you're hoping that a Snuggerud-Thomas Neighbors is your line combination, but that comes down to if Snuggerud's up to par to play defensively the same way that Robert Thomas is. But with what that article is, you can't play Jordan Kyrou with Robert Thomas. You need to exploit other teams, like you just mentioned, with Jordan Kyrou on a line with Braden Shen and Brandon Saad.
I'm totally with you, and it goes back to what I've been saying all along, which is you also need a number 2 center. Because for as much as we all like Braden Shen, let's be honest about where he's at in his career. He's not what he was 2 or 3 years ago, I don't think, at least, watching him. Maybe some of that is because of injuries. That's very possible. I think that the Blues, to get the most out of their team next year, they need a new number 2 center. And I think Braden Shen is best served as your third line center going into next year, or a winger on the third line. Either way is totally fine. If you get that second line center, I also think it will help you get more out of Jordan Kyrou on that line. Because now you're talking about, okay, improvement on second line center, Jordan Kyrou plus like Brandon Saad, for example, or Jimmy Snuggerud on that line as well. Man, that is a pretty darn good line right now compared to what you had previously going into the season. So I do think it influences the way that they should build. And if they're planning to use Thomas in this kind of a role moving forward, yeah, a guy like Jake Neighbors makes a ton of sense on his line. And a guy like Pavel Buchnevich, you probably should keep him around, because having those kinds of difficult matchups defensively, he's somebody that can actually stay up there and maintain his level of play against those.
The hard part with all of this, and let's go down the path that you do keep a Pavel Buchnevich. Like in an ideal world, I'm looking at next season, the same top line, 89, 18, 63. If we go down
the names real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Buchnevich, Thomas, and Neighbors. If you go down the path of moving Braden Shen down, and let's say in this hypothetical world, you move out Kevin Hayes. Shen's on your third line center. I'll put a Jimmy Snuggerud on that third line at the right wing. So now, does Brandon Saad play your third line wing or your second line wing? Okay, so in this scenario, what you're doing is you're looking at this and you're saying you need to get that second line center. And I mean, you would put Bolduc there on the left side with Shen and Snuggerud, but that's a lot of youth there. And if you're going on the youth movement, this is the way to do it. But yeah,
they did that this year. Like, there were times when they had young players next to Kevin Hayes, and it was Bolduc, and I can't remember who it was that they put next to him, but another young player.
Yeah, probably Toropchenko, or maybe they had Neighbors there. Yeah. But what this does, though,
this is the reality of being in a retool, man. Yeah. You're going to have 2 young players on some line. Like, there's no way to get around that.
Yeah.
At some point, whether they're bringing up Dean, whether they're bringing up Snuggerud or Bolduc, or later on Dvorsky, like, you're just going to have a lot of young guys in this lineup. Otherwise, you're going to have to trade them.
And that's why
those 2 routes.
It's like I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, you're going to have to open up the cap space if you're going to re-sign Buchnevich to use that and try and get rid of one of those defensemen, open up 6.5. But I also think you're going to have to trade some of those assets, all of these young players that you have that you hope are a part of it. You're probably going to have to trade some of those to get that centerman or to get that defenseman to shore up your team.
Possibly.
You can accomplish that. I think you're talking about coming out on the other end by next season, but it's a lot of work to do in the offseason.
I do think that we talk a lot about Buchnevich, and sometimes it sounds as if we're talking about the cap hit being next year. It's not. It's 2 years from now when he would get that significant raise. And there is some money that falls off of the books over the next couple of years. Not a ton, but the cap is rising. You have, I think it's like, what is it, $10 million going into this offseason to play with
right now it's $12 million. Next season you have $26 million.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money. So even if I said he's making an $8 million contract on an AAV scenario, you've still got $18 million that offseason to be able to play with. We're not expecting this team to be a big player in free agency in either of the next 2 free agency periods because of those young players that are going to accumulate those roster spots. I think that it is more possible to work around this than what we sometimes make it out to be.
And those 3 contracts that you would have to do other than Buchnevich would be Toropchenko, who's probably looking at somewhere between $2 to $4 million. Jake Neighbors would get paid, and if he puts together a good season again, you're probably talking about
a bridge deal. So you're talking about a few million bucks.
I thought bridge deal was Kairou's, and you were going straight to 8. So I just don't know with what happens there.
I don't think players like Neighbors get paid that way, though.
If you put together a 30-plus goal season, you might. And then you've got Joel Hofer also, who's probably talking about the bridge deal as well. So that's it. And you're right. You do have all of that cap space, and that's going on the path also of 3 guys who become modified no-trade clauses. So it does open up. You just have to decide, does Booch and Kyrou work for this team moving forward if we get that sentiment we're talking about?
And I think it can. I think that's what's required, though. I think you have to have Jake Neighbors show that he's capable, and this is why I'm so frustrated they didn't try this until now. But you have to find out that Jake Neighbors is a legitimate top-line player. You have to find out that Jordan Kyrou is good on that second line with a center that can get the most out of it. If you can get those things, I think it can work, but it requires all of that. He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. Blues versus the Flames tonight, pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock. That top line is going to be Booch, Thomas, and Neighbors. Finally, our prayers have been answered. Coming up next, it's one of my favorite things we do around this time of the year. T-Bone's going to give us his 3 bold Cardinals predictions entering this season. Our T-Bone 3 coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks here. They Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Opening day for the St. Louis Cardinals as they take on the LA Dodgers in LA. 3:10 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis on the mound for St. Louis. Tyler Glass now gets the start for the Dodgers. And if you haven't seen the Cardinals lineup, you can check it out on our Twitter page at 101 ESPN. And the Blues will be back in action tonight as well as they take on the Calgary Flames. We'll pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. And then Joey joins Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffauto.com. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We'll get to the junk drawer here in just a little bit, but
this is the junk drawer to right this segment.
Opening day has become a tradition here on BK and Ferrario. Every year, T-Bone will put together his 3 bold predictions for the upcoming season. Now, sometimes he says something like Steven Matz is going to be the best starter for the rotation, and then Steven Matz is replaced in the rotation about halfway through the season.
Taylor Motter's going to be a great piece for the Cardinals utility.
Other times, he says something really smart. We will see.
What? Like what?
I'm sure there's been one or two.
Sure.
We will see how these go this year. It is one of our favorite segments on this station. It is time for a T-Bone 3. T-Bone?
T-Bone. 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 Love that T-Bone.
All right, guys, let's get into this. We first got to have an honorable mention, guys. Ferrario gets to do a Ferrario 7.
It's a 6, all right?
Whatever.
And
This
they
is
usually
T-Bone
hit.
4. My honorable mention, I thought about putting this in here, but then I was looking at this, and I was going, man, you're getting too excited about the offense. Calm down. Jordan Walker, 30 home runs, 30 doubles. Would be the first Cardinal to do that since Albert Pujols.
I was told that Jordan Walker doesn't steal bases by BK.
I didn't say steal. I said doubles.
Oh, I thought you said stolen bases. I'm not listening these days right now, apparently.
But let's get into it. Number 3 on the 3 bold predictions for the season. Mason Wynn wins a Gold Glove at shortstop at the age of 22, which would be the youngest Cardinal to ever win a Gold Glove. That's number 3 for your T-Bone 3.
I like that
3
one.
bold predictions.
I think that one's going to happen. I just hope the Cardinals don't ruin that chance by saying his bat's not playing and we got to send him back to the minors.
Really sucks.
I should know
Dodgers
this
are like
offhand, but I
Bexes.
don't have it in the back of my head. Who won the National League Gold Glove at
Wasn't it Swanson?
shortstop last year? Swanson.
Yeah.
Swanson has won it each of the past 2 seasons. 2021, it was Brandon Crawford, who is now the mentor.
Oh, maybe
for
Crawford's
Mason
going to win
Wynn.
it this year.
Javi Baez in 20, Nick Ahmed in 2019 and 18, and then Crawford in 17, 16, and 15.
T-Bone is right, though. Like, Mookie Betts playing shortstop is really not going to help that case.
Yeah, but I think the shortstop, like, I look at the position across the league, like Trey Turner, but he's starting to get up there in age. You've got Mookie Betts, who, let's just be honest, he can play every position.
Yes.
You'll have Ha-Sung Kim will be a tough one to beat, but I don't think it's insurmountable for Mason Wynn. He's just going to have to become a name that's recognized across the league. That's where it's going to get tough.
But he could do that because of his arm. Sorry to cut you off there, Alex. The thing that could help him is, like, a lot of the time, we know how this works, right? It's based on offensive statistics. The best defensive player that is good offensively. It's kind of the way that the Gold Glove Award has worked in recent seasons. But a lot of that is because of the highlights. Like, you need to know the name first, and then we can talk about the game. I think Mason Wynn is flashy enough with the way that he plays defensively that you will see his highlights on social media all the time defensively. I could see him ending up in this kind of a category.
His is really going to come down to Paul Goldschmidt's health / if he's still with this team. Because, man, I mean, as much as we love the plays that Mason, if you don't have the first baseman making the catches and it's looking like errors because
Burley could catch a 100-mile-an-hour sinker?
I don't think he can. I think you're trending towards the Jose Martinez experience once you put somebody else at first base. But I love this one. I think it really is going to come down to Goldschmidt, though, being with the team all season.
Man, there is just not a lot of great defensive shortstops in Major League Baseball right now. Like, it's become so much more of an offensive-minded position that you get guys like Xander Bogaerts, who I know is not playing there this year, but Carlos Correa,
That's
Bo
going back to old
Corey
school.
Seager. These guys are fine defensively, but they're not this kind of style. I can see this. I like it, T-Bone.
Number 2 on the T-Bone 3 bold predictions for the 2024 season. Nolan Gorman may not be hearing the pop of the popcorn no more, but he will be hearing the pop of the bat. 45 home runs this season.
Or the pop of his back.
45 home runs this season for Nolan Gorman because he stays healthy. Joins Albert Pujols and Mark McGwire is the only Cardinals to ever hit 45 home runs in a single season.
This I don't like. I don't think this is going to happen because of the health. I don't see him staying healthy. I see him going through lulls like we've seen in the past, and then it's like, oh, well, we've got Donovan who could play second base, and we'll give him some time off. I think if you would have said 35 home runs, I'd have been like, bold. Yeah, I could see that one, but 45, yeah. No, I'm sorry, I ain't there.
So he ended up with 27 home runs last year, but he did not play anywhere close to 162 games. He played in 119. If you just applied his pace from 119 over 162, he would have been on pace for 37 last year in terms of home runs. He would have been on pace for 37 home runs and 103 RBI. For all the talk about how he doesn't drive runs in, he actually did on a rate basis. It's just frustrating watching him strike out. I like this one, T-Bone. If the Cardinals are going to reach their ceiling this year, this is why I argued that he was so high on my list of the 20 most important Cardinals, is because you have nobody else with his skill set. In fact, there are very few players in Major League Baseball with that kind of skill set. Left-handed with legit raw power that could easily get you to 40-plus home runs in a season. I like it. So far, 2 for 2.
And number 1 on the T-Bone 3 bowl predictions for 2024. It's a little bit of a two-parter here. The first part's fun.
So T-Bone 5.
Second part's not fun. Yeah, kind of. The bullpen for the St. Louis Cardinals. I feel like I do this every year, but sometime it's going to hit.
Yeah, that's the way you keep gambling.
Cardinals bullpen finishes top 5 in ERA and top 5 in strikeout percentage, but it's not enough as poor John Mozeliak has to hear this song when the Cubbies win the NL Central.
Ooh. Whoa. Wait a second.
Boy, that is a bold way to end your T-Bone 3 on our show.
Damn, man. It's opening day.
I know. Well, I just want everybody to
Everybody loves the T-Bone 3 still.
Go back through the first part of that. The Cardinals' top 5 ERA in their bullpen.
And top 5 in strikeout percentage.
Man, I don't agree with that part.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't agree with that part either.
Have you seen Andrew Kittredge, who looks like he belongs in the 1920s?
Yeah. Remember how excited we were about Drew Verhagen at spring training last year?
I think the top 5 ERA, very possible. The strikeout rate, I do not believe. I do not think they will be a top 5 bullpen when it comes to strikeout rate. I still think they have too many guys back there that are just solid when it comes to strikeout rates instead of spectacular. There's too many other bullpens that'll have more firepower in that regard.
Wow. For a guy that raved about Riley O'Brien, you get O'Brien, Gio, Middleton when he's back.
I know, man.
You get
When's back, though?
JoJo Romero. Like, there's some swing and miss in this bullpen. Don't be sleeping on it.
By the way, if you're looking for left-handed power from a year ago, the guys that hit 30 or more home runs last season, Matt Olson, Kyle Schwarber, Shohei, Max Muncy, Juan Soto, Corey Seager, Rafael Devers, Yordan Alvarez. That's the company that you're keeping if you're talking about Nolan Gorman in a 30-plus home run
Now
capacity.
do 40-plus home runs.
Shohei, Schwarber, Matt Olson.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to put him in that category yet.
Yeah.
Why couldn't he be Matt Olson?
Whoa. About 50. A lot.
Matt Olson's first year in the big leagues, 23 years old, 24 home runs. Second year in the big leagues, 24 years old, 29 home runs. Third year in the big leagues, 25 years old, 36 home runs. And then he got to 39, 34, and finally last year, 54. I'm not telling you he's going to hit 54 home runs, but he could be Matt Olson. He could be something similar to that.
You asked the question why. Honestly, for me, health. I just don't know if I buy that he's going to be able to play 150-plus games.
That's fair. I think that's probably the biggest thing holding.
I think you're talking 100 to 120.
No pun intended.
I looked at this, so I can't remember what his percentage was. I was really diving into the numbers this morning. I looked at like his home run percentage, and I was like, okay, so what if it like takes an uptick? If it takes an uptick to, I think it's like 7% or 8%, and he plays and gets the same amount of at bats as Goldschmidt had, he would be at like 41 homers. So like if he can kind of, you see a little bit more improve.
But could he get to like 35 plus, get around that 40 range?
Was like, hey, Victor Scott's going to steal 100 bases.
Well, I almost did 50, and I was like, whoa, let's calm down.
I think you should have calmed down when you said 40.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like Nolan.
You got to be wrong on at least 2 for the T-Bone 3s.
All right, so the T-Bone 3 this year.
Mason Wynn wins a Gold Glove, youngest Cardinal to do it.
A lot of puns on this T-Bone 3. I like it.
Nolan Gorman, 45-plus home runs. Third Cardinal to ever do it, joining Pujols and McGwire. And the Cardinals bullpen finishes top 5 in ERA and strikeout percentage.
But
they lose. Like, seriously, we got like 3 MVPs.
Get this off of here. Get out of here, T-Bone. Cut off his mic. Cut off this song. The Junk Drawer is coming up next here on 101 ESPN. I'm going to get mad in the next segment. I'm already lightheaded from it. I just want you guys to know that ahead of time.
Cardinals.
You want me to play the Cubs song again?
No, please don't. God.
Go, Cubs, go! Hey, Chicago, what do you say? Cubs are gonna win today.
So now that the audience is gone, let's go ahead and dive into the junk drawer. Alex, would you be interested in getting paid to find the biggest wiener in America? I'm reading from a headline here. This is just me being a newsman.
No, I think there's adult movie stars that do that. I don't need to worry about that.
Okay, you took it in a direction that I was unprepared for. All right, so according to a news story from BetUS,
US T-Bone's in.
You could get paid $2,500.
And
the requirements are fairly significant, though. You have to go to 30 different ballparks to record the length of the hot dog in that ballpark.
Do you have to finish the hot dog?
You just have to measure it. I don't know what happens after that. I mean, I would imagine
like a waste
if you want
of money.
to, go for it. But
you're not eating it.
So if I'm paying $20 per
So this is an important part. Your travel expenses to each game will be covered.
Sweet.
Plus, you get free seats, the $2,500 rate, and a $500 gift card to the MLB gift shop.
Oh.
You also get a free 1-year subscription to MLB TV. You can apply right now online in a form that asks you to describe why you should be picked to become their new connoisseur. You have to be 18 or over, by the way.
I feel like so all you got to do is measure it.
Yeah.
And you're good. I mean, that seems like a lot of money to throw out.
How do you describe walking to the ballpark? Sir, why do you have a measuring tape? Well,
I'm here to measure your wieners.
Let me pull out my certified wiener measurer card.
I'm actually a certified wiener measurer for Major League Baseball.
This is like one of the greatest jobs you could ever have. In fact, like,
there's no negative to this.
If or when I get fired from this show, I will absolutely apply for a job like this.
You should.
Just do odds and ends jobs all summer long. Just go into a bunch of different ballparks.
Man, I thought you had to finish them, too. Like, you had to eat every one of them.
I'll even travel around the minor leagues if we need.
Because I was going to ask, like, how many is too many, you know? But
at each ballpark?
Like what I'm saying is, like, I thought you had to eat each one.
Do you have to, like,
I would imagine you probably will eat the hot dog. You're at a bowl game.
I don't think I would.
I
have a question
I'm just going to measure it, and then we're going to throw it away.
Do I have to, like, clarify when I go up the train? You know, because they're going fast up there. They're just going to grab the first hot dog they see.
I need your biggest one.
I need you to go back there and give me the biggest hot dog, please.
The attendants are going to look at you like, what? And then you flash your card.
And honestly, you shouldn't even say hot dog. You should say
it needs to be the wiener. Yeah, you need to walk up and say that.
We got to move on. Coming up next, I'm going to get mad at the Cardinals' projected lineup for tomorrow a day ahead. We'll do that next year on 101 ESPN. Katie has tweeted.
Oh, yeah.
Oliver Marmol said that the decision between Burleson and Matt Carpenter to see who would start at designated hitter today was difficult, but ultimately, Burleson hit his way into the designated hitter spot. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Does it?
She continues.
Uh-oh.
Marmol wants to rotate everyone in this series, but expect this to be the standard lineup until projected starters return. Okay.
Gotta get everybody action.
I screamed during the break.
Very loudly.
Very loudly.
So that way I wouldn't do it during this segment.
Oh, yeah, because you'll keep a level head here.
I'm going to stay very calm, and I'm going to try to be as rational and as level-headed as humanly possible.
What is going on?
I'm going to need somebody to please explain to me, and if they make a good point, I'm happy to listen. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat is over on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. Why in God's name does Brandon Crawford have to play in this series?
Oh.
World Series champion to you, sir.
Can somebody explain to me why Brandon Crawford needs to get playing time in the first series of the season and why Michael Ciani needs to get a start in the outfield?
Well, Brandon Crawford was signed to make sure that they don't overuse Mason Wynn. That's what we were told when he was brought in. And Michael Ciani, guys, did you see the elite defense that he provided through spring training? You don't need Victor Scott.
I honestly, the Carpenter Burleson thing, like, it's going to frustrate me probably this year how much they play Carpenter, especially if he struggles early on. But, set that aside. That's a different conversation. That's at least a legitimate competition between the two. I think there was a chance 2 weeks ago Burleson wasn't making this team. So, fine, cool. The catcher thing, totally get it. You're probably going to see at some point in this series, maybe multiple times, Devon Herrera behind the plate. Cool. No problem here. I can totally understand that. Brandon Crawford's role is supposed to be as a backup, a designated backup to Mason Wynn. And that's it. You're in what was supposed to be the Taylor Motter role, not what was actually the Taylor Motter role, where he's starting like 3 times a week. I don't need that out of Brandon Crawford this year. That's not what he's here to do. Hey, Michael Ciani, your entire role, the entire thing, if it's the 7th inning or later and we're up by a run or two, hey, go in there, tell Jordan Walker good game, and bring him back to the dugout so that way he's not out there
tackle anybody.
That's it. That's his entire role for the first couple of weeks of the season. And then, Michael Ciani, shake my hand. Thank you so much for your effort. We're going to go get Lars Nootbaar. He's ready to go. We're done with you. You go back down to AAA, and we'll see you later on this season if we need you. That's it. That's the entire role for him. Why does this team feel the need to rotate these guys in if you get into a spot where, hey, your season's crumbling because Brandon Crawford and Michael Ciani didn't get enough at-bats in the first week of the season, then your season was never going to be a success. That's the truth. So, again, I'm trying to be level-headed here, but can somebody please explain to me why you need at-bats for those two players in the first series of the season against the best matchup or against the best team that you're probably going to face this season?
Don't look at me for answers because I'm on his side.
No, I got this. All right, so we're probably going to need to get Goldie a DH day, so we'll put Carpet first, or hell, he'll hit DH in one game. Honestly, the Ciani one, what I think probably is happening there is they will spend a air quotes, work day with Walker in the outfield to where either he DHs or he's not in the lineup, and they put Ciani in the outfield. And if I'm being completely honest with you, this is a common practice across baseball.
Oh, see,
a lot of baseball teams will commonly just bring in their bench guys for one game
in the first week of the season.
In the first series.
Why?
It's common practice. Just get them a game.
Why?
I don't know.
This is a team that has so much.
I'm not a manager.
Well, Michael Ciani does it. If you were telling me that Dylan Carlson was Michael Ciani, I get it, but I don't need experience for Michael Ciani. You're going back to Memphis in 2 weeks.
This team is built around offense. The team is built around offense.
No, they're built for defense.
And the best way to get to extract that offense is by just playing your best guys. There will come a point in time where I'm not singing the same tune. Like I was the one all year last year that was saying I think the fast lane guys overreact to them not having the same lineup every day. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you need to have guys that are starting 162 games out of the year unless those guys are Ronald Acuna Jr. and Ozzie Albies and first base, Matt Olson, and Austin Riley. If you have those guys that are both good offensively and defensively and post every day, dude, absolutely you should have them at the same spot every single day in your lineup. Totally agree. The Cardinals don't have those guys. By the way, those guys are all like under the age of 30. Goldie's old, and he's got a bad back.
Hey, man.
Arenado's old, dealt with some injuries a year ago. Like, Gorman, he's going to have to take some days at DH because that back is going to be something that you're thinking about the entirety of the season. Jordan Walker, not very good defensively. Like, there's reasons why this lineup doesn't operate the same way that the Atlanta Braves does, and so I get that as we get further into the year. Dude, it's week 1. It's week 1 of the season.
I thought the Michael Ciani thing was more Brendan Donovan, of where they're like, man, maybe we don't want him in the outfield for 4 straight games because of his offseason. And we were like, we'll put Ciani out there in left field for one of those games so that he could be a DH for us and we don't have to worry about his arm being thrown. That's what I originally thought with Ciani. The Crawford one makes 0 sense. I don't think, what is he, 22 years old? I don't think 22-year-old Mason Wynn needs a day off in the first 4 games of the season so Brandon Crawford could get his feet wet.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of you guys. I just know it's common practice that the bench gets a game.
Well, they need to change it.
Opening series. Why, man? Tradition's great.
2 of those guys aren't even going to be on the team in like 2 months.
Whoa.
I would say this. Like, maybe a lot of those teams aren't in the position that the Cardinals are.
The Cardinals are trying to downplay that they oversold the first month of the season once again, by the way.
Patience. We don't need to worry about things till August.
Like, they talked about falling. They said all the right things in the offseason. We need pitching. We're going to, we got to be ready for the first month because that's what sunk us last year. And then as we get closer into it,
but we don't need to worry about
6 injuries, by the way. 6 injuries, 3 of them into the outfield. And I hear Mo going, hey, the first month's not going to determine everything. It's the long run. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. It's like,
that marathon.
Mo, you guys fell apart last year in the first month, and we're just going to downplay that?
But this marathon, when the gun goes off to start, your team fell and laid on the ground for a good 25 minutes.
I just don't get it, man. I really don't. I think Ollie's a really good manager, and I'm like one of the only people in St. Louis that believes that. I don't understand this philosophy in the first week of the year. T-Bone, maybe you're right. There's tradition across. Fine. You don't have to follow that. Ollie goes against the grain on a lot of the ways that he manages. He is more modern than what many of the managers across this game are, generally speaking. And some of the decisions that he makes, like the bullpen management, for example. Man, he brought this team out of the, ice age when it came to what he's going to do with his bullpen. He'll use his best reliever in the 8th inning if that's what the situation calls for. And I like that stuff. I understand some people don't. That's totally fine. We can disagree on baseball opinions here. But this is just weird. It's just a weird thing to do, in my opinion, in the first week of the season. Now, maybe this is just him saying something, and we get to the end of the weekend, and instead of it being Michael Ciani and Brandon Crawford that got opportunities, maybe it is just Ivan Herrera and Matt Carpenter, in which case, cool, man. I'm not going to push back against that. It is what it is. But I find if those 2 guys get a start in this series, that is, to me, a mistake. I understand you got a bunch of games in a row here. It's a mistake. Because you need to get out of this road trip to L.A. and San Diego with your best foot forward. Those guys can start 7 games in a row, man. They can. And then you've got an off day on that Thursday on that following Friday before you have that second game of the home opening series. I think it's going to be okay. It's weird to me. I don't understand it, and I hope that this is just something that they're saying and not something that they actually believe.
Are you telling yourself it's going to be okay? Like, are you like it's going to be okay? It's going to be okay.
I think he was crying a little bit.
Well, that's me. A runny nose.
T-Bone, I feel like we need some positivity in our lives.
We really do.
Because this went more negative than I was expecting.
You need a Ferrario 5?
I'm excited about the season. I'm one of very few people that I think is actually excited about this Cardinals team.
BK in the offseason, they're going to win 95 games. I looked at him and I was like, what in the hell are you smoking?
I like how he just said at the end of this segment, I'm one of the few people that are excited about this season.
I know.
10 minutes ago, what is going on?
That's what this team will do to you as we get closer and closer to the season. We do this thing on our show. It's called the Cardinals Bullpen Circle of Trust.
Whoa.
It's a very simple thing. There are very few players that are entrance into the circle of trust. By the end of last year, I think we had 3 of them that were actually a consistent part of the Cardinals bullpen circle of trust.
I think there's one.
It's a feel thing. We do a lot of stuff on this show based on the numbers. This is purely based on feel. How do you feel when that reliever enters the game? Do you trust that they are going to be able to keep the score where it is at? T-Bone, play my open.
Who do you trust? Who do you trust? Tell me who you trust. It's the Cardinals Circle of Trust with BK and Ferrario.
Hold the front door. You're open?
Yeah.
This is our open.
In the BK build up, bud.
Yeah, we have your open. Ta-da!
Touche. All right, let's get into the Cardinals bullpen circle of trust. I will go ahead and throw out my first nominee.
Oh, God, he's going to start with... Oh, I thought he was going to start with Riley O'Brien.
How do you guys feel about Ryan Helsley being the first entrance to the 2024 Cardinals bullpen circle of trust?
Yeah, I think that's the one that should be given the opening to that bullpen of trust. But I got to tell you right now, Ryan.
Oh, boy.
Before we welcome you in, I got to tell you something. If you're going to be in this circle, you better not pull the old, I can't pitch 3 days in a row. Crap. I don't need any of that.
Wayne can't play 3 days in a row, Ali just told us.
Well, 2 days in a row. Neither can any of the outfielders. Siani's got to get in. You better not pull any of that crap, Ryan. You're our closer. And if you're going to be in the circle of trust, you're available when we need you.
I actually thought Ryan Helsley did a pretty good job with availability last year, other than being hurt. But neither here nor there.
Yeah, sure. That whole thing of like, well, I need rest in between was all good.
I support this notion. I agree that we should have Ryan Helsley in the circle of trust. He's one of the, I think he has the best stuff on this whole team.
All right, Alex, who's your nominee? Do you have anybody else that you think is deserving on opening day of being in your bullpen circle of trust?
Yeah.
It's okay if the answer's no.
I mean, look, I'm skeptical about all these guys. I'll throw Andrew Kittredge into this one.
I thought you were going to go Liberatore.
What? If that man is brought up into this conversation. No, I like Andrew Kittredge's stuff. I thought he was very poised throughout spring training. The guy was an all-star 2 years ago, and as we know, the Cardinals know how to unlock the potential of pitchers in this organization. But I like this one in terms of a high-leverage role, shutdown role. I'm going to put Andrew Kittredge in this one.
I support the notion. I thought Kittredge looked really good in spring training. I'm excited to watch him pitch, so I would support putting him in the circle of trust.
Sweep it! We're all on the same page with Andrew Kittredge. T-Bone, do you have anybody beyond Helsley and Kittredge that should be a part of the circle of trust?
You know, spring training worried me a little bit. But it really was just one bad outing, and I say the more the merrier. JoJo Romero up for the circle of trust.
Okay. Does it say anything that all three of us nominated somebody before Giovanni Gallegos?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to vote for him, so.
I wasn't either.
Good.
I was going to bring up JoJo, so I'm glad you did. I'm on board with his as well. I think as the lefty, he's the big one.
I would probably vote no, but 2 out of 3 means that you get in JoJo Romero,
in a cowboy hat?
member of the circle of trust.
And have you seen him crush a Red Bull, both drinking and smashing?
Yeah, the stash looks good.
All right.
I'm going to throw one more out there.
Here he is.
Don't you say who I'm thinking.
Matthew Liberatore.
I'm going to throw one more out there. The only reason I'm going to let you get away with that is because you're also Italian.
Yeah, I can do that.
There's one other that I'm going to throw out there, and it's because I am smitten with this man after watching him.
T-Bone and I both agree. You can't put him in.
Can we put Riley O'Brien into the Cardinals bullpen circle of trust coming off of spring training? 10 innings in 10 appearances, allowed a total of 11 hits. He also struck out 8 and only walked 2. His biggest issue in the past has been command. He did not have those issues in spring training. Would you guys be willing to put the newest member of the Cardinals bullpen, Riley O'Brien, former Seattle Mariner, in the Cardinals bullpen circle of trust?
Nope. Can't do it. If you're going to be in my circle of trust, I have to have at least some type of expectation, and I don't know what the hell Riley O'Brien's going to look like in a major league game. It hasn't looked pretty in his past. So, no, you have to show me something before you earn the circle of trust.
Yeah, I'm saying no as well. I loved what he did in spring, but as you love to scream, spring training stats don't matter.
True.
And he's only had 2 games or 3 games in the big leagues, 2 games. And look, I'm not going to have this guy in the circle of trust after 2 big league games. There's a reason that his third team in the major leagues at age 28 because people haven't trusted him. He hasn't had command. Exactly. So he is not making the circle of trust.
So there are 3 guys that we didn't bring up.
Okay.
We're all on board with this. No to Giovanni Gallegos, correct?
I say no.
I'm a no to start out the season.
I'm at as well.
At first. I need to see him make some adjustments after what happened last year. I didn't think he had a great season last year.
I know he's hurt, but it was a good acquisition, Keenan Middleton.
Yeah, I wouldn't have him in my circle of trust.
Even if he was healthy?
Yeah.
And then the other one, which I'm surprised none of us mentioned, is Andre Palante.
Oh, no.
I got to see it.
Coming into spring training, I didn't even think he was going to make the roster. So, yeah, I got to see it early on.
Even though spring training, though, if you were going to put O'Brien in, Palante.
Even though I love the death ball.
Death ball.
I need to see it first. Same with, like, the Rule 5. I always forget his name, Fernandez.
Yeah.
I got to see it from everybody before you're in.
I'm on board with all those as no's. I'm just bringing them up because I know people are going to say, you didn't mention any of these guys.
After one inning today by Palante, I'll be ready for tomorrow's circle.
Sure, of course.
But until then.
Ryan Helsley, Andrew Kittredge, JoJo Romero on opening day of 2024. Those are your three relievers that are in the BK and Ferrario circle of trust. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to our number one most important Cardinal for the 2024 season. You're never going to guess who this is. Spoiler alert, he's not on the roster today. But coming up next, time for a game of Believe It or Not. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Rhino Shield. When it comes to the exterior of your home, your business, man, it needs to be looking great. And I'm speaking to all the business owners out there right now, because when you look at the exterior of your business, does it give you that feel that when a new customer or when a client sees it, they're like, you know what? This business has it in order? Because there have been plenty of businesses that I've driven past, and you see the paint chipping off, you see the water damage on the side, and you're thinking, oh, this place has been around a little bit too long. That's why you need to call Rhino Shield, because the paint coatings that they offer for the exterior is unlike anything else. Look, you can try and buy it yourself and get it over the counter at the hardware stores and think you could just do this, but the difference is it's not the multi-layer coating promise that Rhino Shield offers. And what I mean by that is you're getting different types of layers of the paint coating on the exterior that is going to be able to withstand all of the types of elements, whether it's the UV rays, deflects 90% of those from the Missouri sun. It's 100% waterproof, backed by a 25-year transferable warranty, thanks to Darren and his team at Rhino Shield. So go get your business that upgrade of the exterior by giving Darren a call at Rhino Shield. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25rhino.com.
Guys, a fan told us while we were at Cyberg's that he really loved this song, and this segment's never dying. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
free, flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. You give us a scenario, we will tell you if we are believing it or not here on 101 ESPN. Guys, believe it or not, the Cardinals will be 4-3 after this first road trip to the West Coast. Okay.
That was easy.
Okay.
That was easy.
Click. That was easy.
Go ahead.
They're going to win one game against the Dodgers, and they're going to win one game against the Padres.
Really?
So that is 2 in 5.
You did hear that Ollie's rotating guys through the rotation to get their feet wet, right?
I don't believe it. I think he's not.
You do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You were there that segment.
Okay, tough guy.
They're not going to do that.
Okay, on top of BK's here, believe it or not, in the next 7 games...
Hold on. I'm going to believe it.
No, Sherlock. Of course you're going to believe it.
I think they win 2 against the Dodgers and no. Yeah, 2 against the Dodgers, 2 against the Padres.
Okay, tough guy.
They better.
Of their next 7 games to start the season, the Cardinals get 4 quality starts.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Tough guy.
I'm not going to believe this.
I agree.
A, that I don't believe in this rotation. But B, some of these, I think their pitch count's probably going to be around 80 pitches. 80. I don't think they're built up completely yet coming out of spring training. Like the Dodgers didn't have their starters go till, I think it was 75 is where they were pulling them out of Seoul. So I will say not, just because I don't know if they're built all the way up, which will make it even tougher to get a quality start.
I'm going to say not because Matz is not there. Thompson, I don't think is going to get to 6 innings. And early on, I'm not sure I believe that Lynn will do that either. By the way, I just got confirmation they're going to start Brandon Crawford at some point in the series.
Yes.
They can start Siani too, buddy.
I don't know on that one.
I love how that's the one you're sticking with, Crawford. That's not even the one that bothers me. The Siani one is what bothers me. I can't wait to see Jordan Walker pulled out of the game for Michael Siani to start one.
That'll be the right
Not starting.
Pulling him out of the game late
not
if
in
you're
the middle
winning.
of the game. Walker won't play in a game because Siani's starting.
He'll be DH.
No, he won't.
All right.
Goldie's old.
Ollie, manager of the year. On track.
You up?
Yeah, it's me.
T-Bone, you up?
I'm all aboard the Victor Scott train, as we know. Choo-choo!
Last time we all got
go well last time, dude.
Don't get on trains, man.
You're right, but BK's not aboard yet, hopefully. Believe it or not, Victor Scott, we all talked about the stolen bases. Believe it or not, Victor Scott will steal home once this season.
Ooh, I hope so.
That'd be fun.
Ellie De La Cruz did that once last year, right?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, I'm going to say believe it. Why not?
I ain't going to believe this one. They don't even let the guys steal first to second. You think you're going to let him steal home?
I'll believe this.
Yeah, maybe if it's a passed ball, but I don't think that's considered a stolen base for home.
No, I believe this. I think he can do it.
I think he could do it. I don't think the Cardinals are going to let him.
I think they would let him.
Can and will. He'll beat the pitch.
When he gets caught, that's when I'll go, Victor. Really?
Magsier all over again.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to a few of these from the text line now. From the 636, believe it or not, the Cardinals will have Goldie and Arenado on the team until they finish their career. Goldie and Arenado finish their careers here in St. Louis.
Not believe this. I think Goldie's going after this season. I think Goldie finishes his career in Arizona, and I think Nolan finishes it with the LA Dodgers.
I'd be shocked if Goldie's in Arizona. They got a first baseman.
But they don't have a DH.
Okay, I'd hear that.
And a leader. Because that's what teams need.
Everyone will either get a start or an at-bat within the first couple of days of the season.
Boy, I hope it's just an at-bat. 7th inning with runners in scoring position, and Crawford steps up.
Offense, please blows them out one day so we can get all the reserves in.
Crawford steps in with the bases loaded because they pinch hit for Mason Wynn. And then Crawford strikes out and he has to play shortstop the rest of the game.
The better one's going to be when Siani's up there in a significant at-bat over
Victor Scott.
Walker.
And we can't pinch hit for him because it's a full day off.
Okay.
This team, man.
I don't remember what the question was.
Believe it or not, Goldie and Arenado finish their careers here.
Oh, I will not believe it. I think it is more likely Arenado would finish here. But I'm just having a tough time because I don't think his team's going to be very good. I think they are probably 80 and 82, and I don't know if Goldie resigns if that's the case. So I will not believe
wants to be traded.
I don't think Goldie's going to be here beyond this season. I think that the writing is on the wall. Him not signing the contract, I think, is meaningful on both sides, for him and for the Cardinals. I don't think Goldie's back next year. I think that this will be his final year.
It's weird because I think the Goldie one's more likely than Arenado. I think if this team is 500 or less, Nolan demands a trade.
I've never heard Arenado frustrated.
Believe it or not, Victor Scott steals at least 2 bases today.
I'm going to say not believe this. I think you get 1 from Victor Scott today.
Yeah, 2's going to be tough. I'll bite. I'll believe it. I think he'll go 2 for 4 with a strikeout, 2 singles. One will be a base hit single, and the other, hell, he should bunt down the third base line because Muncie's there.
That sounded like somebody made a bet.
I'm going to believe it. Maybe.
I'm not going to believe it. I think he gets 1 today. I do not think he gets 2. Final one here. Believe it or not, Zach Dean will be a top 9 player by the Blues by the end of the season.
I don't know where you're playing him in the top 9. Like, I understand. I heard what Curb said yesterday of, like, if he's on your 4th line, then it's not a successful trade.
I
disagreed with that.
I do too. I think you want a guy who can be on the 4th line. I understand, like, he's got Tyler Bozak projections. That's what I've heard. But, guys, unless you got Kevin Hayes, you're not playing Zach Dean above Kevin Hayes. And he's not playing a wing position. He's playing the center position. So, maybe next year, maybe in 2 years. But for right now, your centers are stacked. Dean's not overstepping any of those guys.
The reason why I disagreed with it actually had nothing to do with any of that and everything to do with you were trading 2 months of Ivan Barbashev. Like, yeah, if you end up getting a player that has a significant contribution to your team, even if it's as a 4th liner, that's something. Like, you got a real tangible asset in return for 2 months of a player that was just playing out the string on a team that he wasn't going to return for the following season. It's not as if you had multiple years of control remaining on Barbie. That was it. It was the end. He was the UFA. So that's why I don't have any issue with it whatsoever.
I mean, Barbashev was a 4th liner for this team for the longest time. And then when he got an opportunity to play in the top 9, he was good for you.
But I'm saying even if he never becomes more than a 4th liner, if he is just a really solid 4th line center, that's a fine trade. Yeah. A lot of the first-round picks that get traded at the deadline, guys, the first-round pick that you end up using, the player that you actually end up using that on, a lot of them do not make any contribution whatsoever at the NHL level. They become busts in the minor leagues, and then you just really never hear from them again. So it's probably underwhelming, but yeah, it wouldn't be, I don't think, a failure. But anyways, do you think that he becomes a top 9 player for the Blues?
I don't, not this season, just because I agree with Alex. I just don't know how you put him up there. Unless they wanted to move Hayes down to the 4th line, and honestly, they probably should. But I don't get the sense they will do that this year. And I'm 100% with you. I think he becomes a regular 4th liner. I think that's a win for the St. Louis Blues.
I'm with you. All right, coming up next, we continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season. You'll never guess who comes in at number 1. BK and Ferrario next.
Terry Hendricks, the Early Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. It's opening day, and the Cardinals are getting set here in about an hour and a half to take on the LA Dodgers. 3:10 will be first pitch as Miles Michaelis gets to start for St. Louis. Tyler Glass now on the mound for the LA Dodgers. Blues back in action tonight as well, as they'll be taking on the Calgary Flames. Well, pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey joins Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. The Sports Update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
The 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season.
Number 1, Sonny Gray.
Dropped the breaking ball on the outside edge. Sonny Gray strikes out the side. Breaking ball, and a wicked one at that. A quick strikeout of Newtbar. Full count to Burleson. Got him. Came back from 3-0 to strike him out.
Strike 3 call. There it is. 13 strikeouts for Sonny Gray. A new career best.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, we are continuing and finishing our 20 most important players list for the 2024 season. At number 1 on our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals is Sonny Gray. No surprise here. The Cardinals rotation he's everything, man. He's the guy that has to be able to go out there, give you 160 plus innings, and have a sub 3.5 ERA. If he doesn't, you don't have anybody else that projects to be that player. Now, maybe Miles Michaelis could be, but it's a long shot. Maybe you get a surprise contribution this season from like a Zach Thompson, or one of the other young guys takes a massive step forward. All of those, though, long shots. The one player that projects to be a legitimate front-end starter in your rotation right now is Sonny Gray. Over the past 5 seasons, this is dating back to the start of the 2019 season, he has a 3.2 ERA. He's been about 40% above league average as a starting pitcher. Alex, Sonny Gray, I think, is underrated by Cardinals fans for what he has been over the past 5 years. He's been excellent. He just ended up as a Cy Young Award guy. This is everything you could possibly ask for from an offseason addition. Yes, he's 34. Yes, he's going into the season with injury questions, but finishing second last year in the Cy Young voting, 7th in 2019. This is the kind of starter that this team has been missing, and they need him to be everything that he was for the Minnesota Twins.
Look, he wasn't my number one wish in the offseason for the Cardinals to acquire. Like, it started with Aaron Nola. I wanted to see a big trade, but after you got through those 2 categories, I wanted to see them get Sonny Gray, because I just wanted to see somebody who has Cy Young ability on this squad. And I know people hear that and they're like, man, he's not a Cy Young. It was only one season. Fine, but he just did it. And to me, I'll capitalize on that and hope that that can be unlocked again this season with Sonny Gray. It sucks that he's starting on the injured list, because I think that would have gotten people more excited for today's game against the Dodgers. We've talked about the offense. We've talked about the bullpen. To get that rotation with a little excitement would be good for this Cardinals team. But I'm still very thrilled to see what he's going to offer this team this season, because this is the first time I felt like they had a legit stud at the front end of their rotation since Prime Waino.
Yeah, they needed somebody last year during the losing streaks. They had a lot of them, to be the stopper. And that's the number one thing for Sonny Gray is, yeah, he's going to have that sub 3.5 that you talked about. He's going to have to be the ace of the staff. In the regular season, where I think the ace matters is he stops losing streaks or gives you the best shot to stop a losing streak. In the playoffs, that's when they matter, is when you get into the playoffs, you've got a guy that can go with the best of the best. And I think Sonny Gray can do that. The big reason they needed him in the regular season, not just for innings and stuff, they needed somebody that could be a stopper. They didn't have that last year, and it would just continue to snowball in the St. Louis Cardinals. I think that's what makes him so important for the regular season.
All right, so our top 5 when we put this thing together. Sonny Gray was at number 1. I've been doing a poll on Twitter for Cardinals fans as well, so they'll put together their top 5 after we already put ours together. The fans also had Sonny Gray at number 1. At number 2 for us was Nolan Arenado. The same was true for Cardinals fans on Twitter. At number 3 for us, Paul Goldschmidt. Once again, going right down the line. Number 4 for us, Miles Michaelis. Number 4 for Cardinals fans, Miles Michaelis.
We are good.
At number 5 for us was Lars Nootbaar. At number 5 for Cardinals fans.
Can I guess?
Contreras?
Jordan Walker.
Was Jordan Walker.
Oh, wow.
That was the
Three-headed
first spot
monster.
that was a little bit of a difference. At number 6, we had Wilson Contreras. If you're looking at number 6 for Cardinals fans, it was Nolan Gorman.
Can see that.
At number 7 for us was Brendan Donovan. At number 7 for Cardinals fans, Wilson Contreras. If we were to redo our list today, would you guys have changed anything with the way that you ended up going about it?
I wouldn't. My top 5 would still be the same. My top 5 would still be where it is intact because I think Gray being number 1, we just talked about. Goldie and Arenado, this team goes as far as those guys are going to take them. I believe you have to have a elite season by Miles Michaelis to be successful. And it was Nootbaar at number 5 for us, correct?
Yes.
I still would put that there because I think this outfield might be in more shambles if you don't have Nootbaar back as fast as they're expecting them to.
I put Nolan Gorman at number 5 on my personal list, and I would still have him up there if we were doing this again today. Like, my biggest change that I would make to our final ranking would be where we had Nolan Gorman. I think Nolan Gorman is going to be hugely important for this team because of that lefty power bat that they have in the middle of their lineup. He's batting third for you, man. If that guy doesn't reach his ceiling, I don't know what you do at that spot in your order.
Marp, he's going to get opportunities at DH.
You need those 30 home runs from the left side to be able to profile well against right-handed pitchers, and most of the aces across the league right now are right-handed. I want Nolan Gorman to have a big season. So that would be one thing that I would definitely change from our list, but I had that on my personal list anyways, so
yeah, you don't have control of that.
Still 1 for 1.
I was the one that did that.
Yeah, I would probably have him higher on my list because I had Gorman at 7. I probably would put him at 5 today. The reason I dragged him down at the time, I didn't know what they were going to do in that 3 spot, and then it became clear with Nootbaar getting hurt that it was Gorman's to run away with. So today, yeah, I agree. I would have Gorman at 5.
That is Tanner Hendrickson. He is Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. If you missed it, our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season. Sonny Gray at 1, Nolan Arenado 2, Paul Goldschmidt is 3, Miles Michaelis is 4, Lars Nootbaar at number 5, Wilson Contreras at 6, Brendan Donovan at 7, Jordan Walker at 8, Nolan Gorman at 9, and at 10, Steven Matz. I would say that's the most loaded top 9 that we have had since we've been doing these lists, and it speaks to the depth of the Cardinals lineup that you have that in the top 9. I would say the back end of the top 20 this year is more question marks than we've had in recent seasons for me. So I would say that's the biggest thing is like significant contributors that are in the 10 to 20 range that are different than what it has been in previous years, where the gap between what their best and worst is wider than what the gap has been in those spots in recent seasons. All right, coming up next, we're going to do our Major League Baseball season predictions. We'll do it a little bit differently. It's NCAA tournament time right now, which means we're going to do this tournament style. Who's your Cinderella story? What's the 12 versus 5 upset? So the team that some can kind of see it, but you're probably not projecting it until we get to opening day. And then the other thing, the number 1 seed that you have the least confidence in. Who's the favorite that you're going to be fading this year? We'll get into all of that and give you our Final Four in Major League Baseball coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, 1 week from today, we are going to be broadcasting live from the Budweiser Brewhouse inside Ballpark Village for the home opener. It's almost here. We'll be set up just steps away from Busch Stadium. We will be there. The opening drive will be there, and the fast lane will be there, starting at 7 o'clock, ending at 6, all live next Thursday at Ballpark Village. Our home opener broadcast is brought to you by Holiday World, Splash and Safari, and by Budweiser. Alex, if anybody missed anything from the show today, they could check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, the free 101 ESPN app, or on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
I want to do things a little differently. I know for a lot of people, this is the day where they go, hey, we're going by division, and we're going to give you our winners, and then we'll give you let's do it a little differently. It's NCAA tournament time. And around this time of the year, whenever we're looking at the brackets, we break it down for you guys. I know you're looking for your 12 over the 5, right? You're looking for your Cinderella story. You're looking for the 1 seed that's not going to make it to the Final Four. So let's do it that way with the Major League Baseball season this year. Alex, let's start with your Cinderella. Who is the team that you're looking at right now? And as you're looking at the projections, you're looking at the Vegas odds, they're really not projected necessarily to do anything of meaning, but you think maybe they've got a shot to be able to put together an 85 to 90 win season and maybe even push for a postseason.
Yeah, I haven't seen what the odds are for this team. I would imagine there are a lot more that are a little bit more favoring them, but my Cinderella team was Baltimore.
Oh, well.
Are they the favorite and everything?
Yeah, they're like a 1 seed.
Are they really? Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't play this game.
It's like saying you like Houston.
I put them as a 4 seed in my American League bracket, though.
Who do you have ahead of them?
Houston, Texas, and Seattle.
Okay. I could hear that. They're the favorite in the East.
I mean, they were Cinderella for me, though, because like we're going 1 through 12 and putting the 6 in the National League and 6 in the American League. I mean, I had them 7th in all of that.
I'll give you the
No, you know what? You made fun of me. Now I don't want to play this one.
I'm not giving you an out. I'm making fun of you.
I mean, I don't buy into these other Cinderellas. I really don't. Like, they're the lowest team that I would buy into.
Fair. I'm going Kansas City. That's
I don't even have them making the playoffs.
Neither do I. I don't think they're going to, but could the Kansas City Royals, they're projected by Pacoda to win 71 games this year. Do I think that the Royals could realistically, in that division, win 85 games this year as their ceiling? Yeah, I really do. Cole Reagans, who's starting on opening day for them, he had a really good finish to the season. Man, if the Cardinals could have had him in that trade with Texas, really would have helped out a lot. But Cole Reagans is somebody worth getting excited about. Their lineup is probably a little more spunky than what people give it credit for. Their bullpen's a real question mark going into this season. That could be a problem. But the Royals are an interesting team, and they've got some talent. They went out and added via free agency to their rotation this offseason. That would be my version of a sleeper this year, the Cinderella story.
Is Seattle considered a sleeper for people?
I would say so.
Because that would be another one that I'd put into this one.
I know that a lot of people
I would consider them like a 12 over a 5. But.
Yeah, I would say that my sleeper, and I don't understand the hate for them, is the Washington Nationals. I actually like some of the pieces on their roster. I think their lineup can be a little bit fun. What's going to depend for them is, does Mackenzie Gore take that step? Because if Mackenzie Gore can take that step, you've got Mackenzie Gore and you've got Josiah Gray. That's a solid 1-2 punch. Josiah Gray was really good last year. So I think it's a really long shot for them to make the playoffs. They're the team, though, everybody's been saying 100 losses, 100 losses. I look at that roster and go, I don't know about 100 losses. I think they could be kind of feisty.
All right. Your 12-5 upset, the team that isn't projected necessarily to win their division, but you think they've got a better shot than people are giving them credit for, and you think they could end up moving on and getting to the DS this year. Alex, who's your 12-5 upset?
Cincinnati.
I like that.
Cincinnati.
That totally applies, by the way. That's perfect.
I'm not listening to you anymore. You made fun of me. Cincinnati, I think they've got the pitching, and I know people aren't giving them enough credit on the pitching side of things. I think Ellie De La Cruz is going to be a difference maker for that team, and I think with the young pieces that they have in place, I actually have them winning the NL Central.
I like that. I would go, they're tough as a 12, but I think they fall into this category because of the division they're in. Mine's Arizona. I love the Arizona Diamondbacks. I love their offense. It's super balanced. They've got good speed. Now, their bullpen's dealing with an injury to Seawald at closer right now. I love their rotation, too. When Rodriguez comes back, they've got a great 1 through 4. They're my 12. I think they could maybe win the West.
I'm going to go with Toronto. This is not a team that anybody seems to be talking about heading into the season because of Baltimore, because of some of the other powers that are around the league right now. Toronto is projected by Pacoda to win like 86 games this year. They're projected to be a good team. A lot of the teams that are on that 12 line were teams that won their conference. I think Toronto is better than we're giving them credit for.
Grand Canyon.
Right, there you go. I think they're an actually really good team that will make the playoffs and has a chance to go on a run this year. I liked them last year. I like them again going into the season because of the rotation. Who's your number 1 seed that you're fading? The team that's projected to win its division, but you're like, you know what? I just don't see it. I don't think that's going to happen for them.
Alex, you should jump on board with me here. Baltimore. I don't trust Baltimore. Their rotation, like, it looks good on paper.
I just picked them as a Cinderella. Why would I pick them as a...
Because you didn't have them as a 1. That's what I'm saying.
I don't trust them.
I love their lineup, but their pitching is already dealing with injuries. I just don't trust the fact that they're going with so much youth in their rotation. I think they needed another arm. I think they needed a Montgomery to really solidify themselves. I just don't trust the Baltimore Orioles rotation staying healthy and sticking with the young guys.
I don't know if this falls into the category. I might get laughed at it again. But I have the Yankees here.
That's what I put as well. They're the favorite right now, actually, to win that division.
Which is wild to me. Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't have them as winning or favoring. But, I mean, with all the name recognition and I think the injuries, I think they're the team that didn't do enough in the offseason, and they put themselves in a spot where I don't even know if they make the playoffs.
Because you took the Yankees, I'll go different. I'm going Astros. I think the Astros have more questions than people are giving it credit for. That lineup should still be really good. It should be rock solid this year. Their pitching's a little shaky, man. There's a reason why they were in conversations with Montgomery, with Blake Snell, with a bunch of the other pitchers that were on the market. So my fade this year is the Yankees, but if I have to go different, I will go with the Houston Astros. Final thing here, your final 4. Who do you guys have making it to the LCS this year? Your final 2 teams remaining on the AL and the NL. I'll go first. Orioles versus Mariners on the American League side. Phillies versus Braves on the National League side. I have the Braves winning the World Series this year. If you noticed, I said no Dodgers there. I do not think that the Dodgers make it to the LCS. I've got the Braves over the Orioles in the World Series this year.
I've got Braves versus Dodgers. I've got Astros versus Orioles, and I have the Braves taking on the Astros in the World Series.
You both got the Braves.
I've got the Braves and the Dodgers in the Final 4. I've got the Braves winning it all. And then in the AL, I have the the Toronto Blue Jays in the Final 4. I still believe in in the Texas Rangers. I know that most of their pitching is injured. It's all going to come back, and I think they're going to be legit. I think they get to the World Series.
We all have the same champion this year, which means congratulations to somebody not named the Braves on winning the World Series. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Enjoy the game later on this afternoon. Enjoy that lineup. Sounds like it's going to be the only time you see it in this series. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fastlane coming up next.
Nothing gets me going like seeing a hydrangea bud